How is that? There it is. It's that other thing. Well, it's nicer, but it is a pain. All right. Cool. You been censored, Brando? They censored you?
That's my story, man. They already know me. They know my posts. They just took the easy route.
All right. How are we sounding, Nolan? How's you got the audio high enough? I feel like we got our volume real low.
Yeah, you probably do.
So are we back on? Is everyone, I don't know if anyone's going to find us now, but I put it on Facebook. For those that are seeing this video for the first time, we had to restart stuff. There was a terrible reverb in the audio. Nolan enabled the God filter. What are you doing?
Oh boy.
We good, Nolan?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Anyways, you were telling me about the airlines that yours is you think is doing a little better than others.
I think so. I mean, like I said, we have the most amount of flights in the whole airport compared to other airlines. Of course,
Hit record on OBS.
one of them has 3 flights in a whole day. The other ones, I'm not sure, but I don't see much activity.
Man.
Between around, if you go out there between 4 and 9 p.m., or let's say 5 and 9 p.m., you see nothing. It's silence. And this is a weird picture at the airport. I was there one time reading outside. I'm like, man, this is just crazy. It's just like apocalyptic kind of view because you're used to all the noise. It's nonstop.
Yeah.
It's just nonstop.
Yeah, I've worked there.
Yeah, and then you go out there and you hear nothing. Not even the cars.
How are the airlines going to survive that?
Well, I have no idea. They took that stimulus back, of course, so they have to keep their employees till September. So once that money runs out, I have no idea what are they going to do. Like I said, I think we are bound to bounce back. I don't know about I don't want to say any airlines names, but I don't know about the other ones because it looks pretty grim for them. And I hope to keep my job too. I'm hopeful, but I'm not too hopeful.
Right.
I'm starting to weigh my options and see what if. Because I love my job. I would love to keep it. It's amazing for my family. It's amazing for me. I work the hours I want. I make the money I want. If I want to work more, I can. If I don't want to work, I can take the day off like today. I just don't go or give it to somebody else. And right now they're offering time off. If you want to take time off, you can take it. Of course, because they don't want to pay you.
Right.
And understandably. So I love that flexibility. I love the benefits. I just love my company. I want it to survive. It's a good company for the workers that they have. But if it does not survive, well, I don't know. For us, what are they going to do? I see my company doing already well. Well, not well as they used to do, but compared to loading 12 bags or even 1 bag on a flight with 1 person on it. Now we loaded 100 bags with 80 people or more because they even have to keep the social distance. They're not selling the middle seat. So they will, yeah, I know, but it's something, I guess.
It's nothing. It's theater. It's all theater.
It's a perception.
That's exactly right. It's drama.
Yeah,
They're putting on a show.
Yeah.
This is my problem with it. It's not. We're not really concerned about safety.
Yeah, but I mean, but the people will do it that way. You know, like they're gonna offer this, and they say, okay, I feel safer now. I'm all for it. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah. So I think it's going up. I see the numbers going up. I see the cargo going up. I see the loads going up. I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, I hope it. I mean, I bought tickets to go to the Bible school, and then of course that all got canceled, and so now I got supposedly credits. We'll see if they're any good. We'll see if that airline survives, and it's actually they actually give me my credit. I'm not hopeful.
Yeah,
I'm not counting. We're not planning any long trips on that money.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And that's the other thing, that I don't have to buy tickets. You know, I can fly for free. Space available given the chance. But yeah.
Does your family get that too, or just you?
Yeah, my family gets it.
So how many tickets will they give you for free to go somewhere? Your whole family?
As many as I want. I mean, the thing is that it's a space available.
Right.
If there's space, I can get on, and my family.
Wow.
And my dad and my mom.
What about your best friends?
Oh, I didn't read that that fine print. No, but I do get points, reward points every single month.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't skip work, if I don't call in and stuff like that, they'll give you points that you can use to buy what we call body passes that you can give to people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that is space available too. But I can check the loads, see if there's gonna be space, see the odds, and tell you, yeah, you have a good chance to get on this flight, and then you go to the airport and you're there.
So have you bought a lottery ticket for Air Force Juan?
I was tempted to. I asked my brother to buy one for me. I'm not sure actually how's that going.
I haven't heard lately about it.
I think they
for those that don't know, AMLO, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the president of Mexico right now, had decided he wasn't going to use the Air Force Juan, the presidential airplane, right? Mm-hmm. And it's his thing of populism. Yeah. So he flies commercial, which is fine, whatever. I mean,
yeah.
But he doesn't want to use it, and of course they've spent all this money on this plane. So his solution is he's going to raffle it off.
Yeah.
And he's going to sell the tickets to just everybody.
Yeah. He's doing that because he wasn't able to sell it. He offered it to many countries. I don't remember which ones, but he offered it to many countries, and they just don't want it.
And he's paying a lot of money to have it in a hangar.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
I think it's here in the States.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least last I heard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's paying that money. And actually, that airplane was bought by Felipe Calderon.
Yes.
But he never got to use it. But Peña Nieto used it. And now he's out and he doesn't want to use it. So this thing is being just a riot, you know. And the actual lottery tickets, they're not for the actual plane. They're for 20 million pesos. So he's going to give, I think, 10 people 20 million pesos because the airplane is like 200 million. So he's not going to give you the airplane.
And what are they going to do with the airplane? Raffle it again?
I have no idea.
Keep raffling it?
I'm telling you that I don't know. Is the airplane going to turn into money? I have no idea what his...
Well, I'm very disappointed because I bought a raffle ticket and I expected a plane.
And that was...
I'm gonna park it out here in my vans.
that was one of my questions. If you win this plane, what are you going to do with it?
It costs like $1 million a year to just have it sit there.
Yeah.
Just to have it in a hangar.
Yeah.
And then, a pilot to fly that is extremely expensive. Mm-hmm. And the fuel is, I forget how much they said it was for a minute of flight. Is ridiculous.
It's just totally stupid.
It is. It's the funniest thing I ever heard. I love that guy. He's like my favorite president of all time, and not just in Mexico, of all time.
All time.
All time. I love the guy.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I mean, and this is the problem with, I don't want to start on this too early, but this is the problem with two left-wing people, that they think with the heart, let's say. His intentions are all good. He wants to sell the plane and build schools and hospitals and help people. It's all good, but it's just not. It's not feasible.
Yeah.
You know, and his what do you call it? His program or whatever you want to call it, that is you probably heard about this against the against the drug
No,
dealers.
I haven't. What's that?
His framework is abrazos no balazos.
yes,
Remember that?
yes,
I'm like,
yes.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know if that's gonna work.
Yeah, that's his motto, right?
Yeah.
Hugs, not bullets.
Hugs, not
That's how he's
bullets.
gonna beat
drug dealers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna give them hugs.
Yeah, but I don't know if they got the memo, you know, because this is not working by any means. The homicides, the killings are still going.
Have you seen the one where he's like in a rally and he's asking people if they want water or if they want a hospital?
Oh yeah.
And they're like raising their hand. Who wants quien quiere agua? Who wants water? And they raise their hand. Who wants a hospital? And then he goes, all right, more people want a hospital. Hospital is what's we're going to build.
Wow. Yeah. That's a job I will never want. Being president. And this is one of the things I don't get about power. Who will want power? Apparently many people. But why? Why is power so appealing to people? Why will anybody want to be president? Why would anybody want to be governor or mayor or anything? Because you're not going to be popular. You're probably not going to be, most of the times, making a real difference. You're going to be hated. Your family is going to be at risk pretty much all the time. This is just a miserable life. I mean, maybe I'm just not too ambitious, but I don't want that.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't, but some people that's what they're built to do. I guess they're like CEOs. It's the same thing. You'll get complaints from especially leftists that you got these CEOs and why can't more people be? Why aren't there more women CEOs? Why aren't there more minority? And that comes from the idea that they have that everybody would want to be a CEO, but it's a very specialized job that has tremendous pressure and tremendous responsibilities.
Yeah.
And most people, if they were given the opportunity, would quit very quickly. They would not want that job. It's a very, very hard job, very specific job.
That's true.
And most of us are not interested in that type of a life. All we think of is the paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And you don't realize that there's a lot of strings attached to that paycheck.
Yeah. I guess it attaches to that, what's it called? The Pareto Principle.
Yes. The Pareto Principle.
Yeah, the 90% of the people 10% of the people put out 90% of the output in any field.
Yes.
So there's very specific people who are built, like you say, for that.
Right, and the Bible got this right, or the Apostle Paul got this right a long time ago, saying that everybody has different gifts, and it is completely irrational to think that people can be interchanged, between things, that you can take any one person and put them in the place of another, and they're going to do that same job just as well. It doesn't happen. No. And this isn't, and this is so obvious in some areas of life. For instance, like singing. I mean, there is a really obvious example. Why can't everyone be a world-class singer? Well, because not everyone can sing, right? We know that. It's like, that's obvious. But it's the same talent of being able to sing is the same talent as being a good president or being a good, luggage loader. I mean, we don't think of those things as talents, but they are. They all are about talent you have and don't have. And there's going to be some people who are better at every particular aspect of life because of their gifts. And that's what Paul got right so long ago. That's why this leftist notion that if somebody doesn't have what you have, then it's because of discrimination.
Right.
That is not a Christian principle.
Yeah.
That is an anti-Christian principle.
Yep.
Paul says not everybody's a foot, not everybody's a hand, not everybody's an eye, not everybody's a mouth. What he's saying is people are not interchangeable. And you're not going to be able to say, well, if he can do that, then or she can do that, then anybody should be able to do that. And if they're not being allowed to do it, it's because of discrimination. And it's not.
It's not true.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. And you would think that everybody can throw a piece of luggage, right? Well, I can attest to that. That is not true.
It isn't true.
It is not true. And it is an easy job, but believe me, there is people that you just look at it like, wow, man, really?
We don't realize on these simple things in life, they don't seem like they take talent. It's like cooking. You think, well, anyone can cook. But there is a difference between a chef, a world-class chef, and anyone trying to cook. It's not just about, well, if you read his book, you could do it.
Right.
There is talents involved, and these talents go way beyond what's obvious.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like basketball players. Stephen Curry. You know, he was already a really good shooter. Then they realized he had a problem with his eyes. He had like an astigmatism, or he had something, and they did a correction on his vision. All of a sudden, he's shooting far better.
Oh.
So, you know, you would think, well, what is it that makes someone be a great shot? Well, it turns out, you know, having really good eyesight is critical to that.
Yeah.
So if you don't have really good eyesight, you're going to be at extreme disadvantage. And there's so many other things. It's like anything you do with your hands. You find some people are a lot more coordinated, right? And one reason why that is because your nerves that come up and feed your brain the information from your fingers or from your feet or wherever, they attach to a certain percentage of your brain. Right. And they've been able to go through with MRIs and determine and realize that not everybody has the same attachment as everyone else. So some people, their hands attach to huge percentage of their brain compared to other people. So when they're using their hands in the MRI, when they're using their hands, their brain, huge portion of their brain lights up, where other people have a more average size, which is why they don't have the same control of their hands. So it's not just like if you could practice it long enough, you'd get better. You're never going to get better at it. You have a low mobility IQ, if you want to call it that.
Right.
It's just what you are. That's most of us.
Yeah.
Most of us have a normal amount of brain power associated with using our hands, let's say.
Yeah. That's connected to so much. That is a dangerous talk to have.
Yeah.
Because the political climate now is that, as Douglas Murray puts it, everything is software to them. Nothing is hardware. Hardware is almost nothing.
That's right.
You know, everything is malleable. You know, gender, sex, even race, right?
Everything.
Apparently, everything is some program that you can install in your hardware. And the hardware doesn't matter much because you can be born whatever, but you can somehow change that. You know, and we're talking about bigger issues like sex.
Yeah.
Like you can just decide what you are, and this is just it's not true.
No, it's not true, and it's going to, and it's going to bring about a tremendous amount of destruction in society.
Yep.
Because, I mean, the only way to make that apparently true, and that's what they have to do. They can't make it actually true. Right, so they're going to make it apparently true. The only way you can make it apparently true is by bringing down all the peaks. You can't lift up all the valleys.
No.
All you can do is lower all the peaks, right?
Yes.
So if you want to make everyone equally smart, you can't make dumb people smart. You have to make all the smart people dumb.
Yep.
You have to just flatten everything, which is what they found out in socialism.
Yes.
We want to make everyone equally wealthy. And the only way to accomplish that is making everyone equally poor.
And it works to perfection.
Yeah.
It works to perfection.
And now they want to take that and they want to apply that to every aspect because that's what they realize, I think.
Yes.
I think what socialism realized is that when you say we want equality and you're talking about money, that is only a very small portion of equality.
Yep.
I mean, so you say, well, we're going to fight inequality. All these people that have more money than other people.
Yeah.
Okay, so fine. So we're going to fix that. Let's fix that. Now everyone has the same amount of money. However that happens. Okay. But I can't sing. And you can sing. I can't be in a band, but you can be in a band. Now that's inequality.
Yeah.
I think we should fix that. But how are we
How
going
do
to
you
fix
fix
that?
it? Yeah.
Right. How are you going to fix that?
Yeah. Use
Well, you're
ban
not going to
bands.
get me to sing. You ban bands. That's exactly right.
Yeah. You get nobody to sing.
Right.
And that's and that's the other thing that the March 6th. I'm sorry about my accent. If
That's all
if
right.
it sounds like I'm cussing, I'm not. All right.
All right, Brando.
Maybe you
if you say so.
Yeah. Maybe you think because of my accent that I'm actually Welsh, but I'm from Mexico, and this is not my first language. So excuse me.
Has anyone ever else called you an expatriate?
No,
You like that, don't you?
Well, and it's true.
You like that?
Because Lena's like, why is he calling you that? Like, what? It's accurate. Because I used to be there.
It's very debonair. I think you should
Yeah.
put that on your business card.
I should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brando Elliot, expatriate.
Brando Elliot. And that's the other thing, like I worked on my Facebook. Well, I created it like, I don't know, 12 years ago, something like that. And on the name, I put my first name, and on the last name, I put my middle name. So that's why I'm Brando.
What
Elliot.
is your last name?
Espinosa.
Espinosa.
Yeah.
I like Elliot.
Yeah, well, that's my middle name.
I figured.
But yeah, and everyone's like, "Are you Elliot?" No, well, I just created it that way. I never changed it. But yeah, okay. Before we go there, I would love to talk, if you will,
Sure.
about how I got to meet you guys. Because
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
I'd
that's
like
an
to hear
amazing
about that.
story.
It is an interesting. You're from Toluca, correct?
I am from Toluca.
Originally?
Originally.
Okay.
My mom is from Michoacan, and my dad is from Toluca. I was born and raised there. I lived there until I was 27, and now I'm here, much older. But yeah,
Had you been to the States before you moved here?
not before that.
Okay.
Not before that. So I was on high school, and that's where I met Lena on the last semester.
Who's your wife?
Who is now my wife.
Yes.
I met her there. I noticed her because she was the only blonde girl
Yeah.
who was naturally blonde, like, and everybody noticed Lena. Everybody noticed that she wasn't from around. But I never paid much attention more than now. Yeah, well, she's gringa or whatever, and that was that. But in the last semester, we get to talk, and we started talking, and then she invited me to church. Of course, I liked her. I didn't like her before. I was like, oh, what's she doing here? There is this spirit about Americans in Mexico. I don't know why. I tried to
Yeah, it's
examine it,
interesting.
but-
There's like two sides. There's people that really like Americans and like them being there, and then there's people that aren't too happy about us being there.
Yeah, I think it's mainly because Mexico is mostly on the left. And
Mostly, huh?
Well,
That's like saying that NASCAR mostly makes left-hand turns.
I mean like 99%. I always laugh when they say, "Oh, this is the right party." I'm like, "What are
I know.
you talking about?"
I know.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. I wanted
We'll
to
get
talk
to
to you
that.
about that. Yeah.
Sure, we'll
I have
get
some
to that.
questions about
That's-
that.
that's-
Okay, they're mostly
funny.
on the left.
They're mostly on the left because it's not 100%. So we go with mostly. But yeah, I liked her a lot by that time. We started dating a little bit, but she was like, she didn't know because I wasn't saved. Yeah, I didn't get it then. I didn't get it at all. And but she invited me to church, and I told her. And this was honest for me. This was honest. I told her, if I don't like her, I will never be back to church. Well, I loved it. He took me to a park. She took me to a park. I mean, and there was these people
Were you
sitting
expecting
around.
that, or were you
Not
expecting
at
a
all.
building?
I wasn't expecting a building,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't expecting like an open park.
Right.
I was expecting like maybe they're under a tent or something like that, like some kind of roof. They had chairs, yeah. I mean, everybody brought their own chairs. But,
Yeah.
But it was mostly people just sitting on whatever benches there were there, the Parque España. And I loved it because it was so real, to use a word, because there was no facade like you go to a Catholic church and you see all these robes and and the smoke, because they burn incense actually.
Yeah.
So you see smoke, and you see the statues and the faces there looking at you, kind of, and they build an atmosphere, kind of to get you in the mood for spirituality and stuff. But it's like, what is going on here? I don't. And then I heard the preaching, and I heard the music, which was just a couple of guitars. I was like, this is amazing. And the preaching got me. Because it was like, nobody talks like this in Catholic churches and pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Just telling you what the Bible says with authority. Not just like, hey, well, it kind of says like he loves you, but, you got to do this and stuff. I loved it. And that's where I met you and all the other guys, Bill and John. And the pastor there, Tonio and Edson, all these guys, amazing guys. They were all very, very nice to me.
How much before we were deported did you come? Do you know how long before that happened?
I would say I started coming for like around 6 or 5 months before.
Okay.
On and off, I wasn't like regular still. I was like, I like it, but I don't know, this is weird, because there is a great pressure for somebody who calls himself Christian in Mexico. It's just like you can be a Catholic and do nothing all your life for Catholicism or show any signs of being religious, but you can still call yourself Catholic. But as soon as you call yourself Christian in Mexico, you're like a weirdo. You're like really, really an outcast. And all my friends and my family were starting to talk to me. What are you doing? What is this? It just didn't seem right to me. Like, why are you getting on me because of this? Now, when you want me to go back to do nothing, not care about God? And they all claim to believe in God, but they really don't show it. It's just like we're all in this together, but we don't talk about God. I didn't get that, and that made me a little mad. And so I started talking about God more, and the preachings I started reading, and I started telling my friends, but this is what he says. It was like a libel to me. It was a progression in some sense to be more regular to the meeting, but as soon as I heard the preaching, it was like, this is all clicking together too fast. And then I heard Bill, I think, or maybe it was you, talking about dating and noviazgo and all that, and the property that it's I can find the words that it's perceived to be like, oh, you're my property because we're dating and we're exclusive, I think they call it here, and then you cannot date anybody else. And they're both living at their parents' house. They have no jobs, but they're already made vows to. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
And it all clicked, and I was like, man, these guys are telling the truth. They're talking good stuff. I like it. So I just, and my dad was saved at some point around the same time.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Probably before me.
How did he get saved? Where?
And that's the weird thing too. In Mexico, you don't get this Christian. I don't want to call it a faction, like we are. They don't believe as much as we do. It's more charismatic.
Right.
It's more Pentecostal, and that's why they are looked at as weirdos. Because you see, it's all dancing, it's all singing, it's all praising, and there's almost no preaching. So when I told them I was a Christian, they thought it was a charismatic. As soon as I told them, "Are you charismatic now? You're gonna start, doing weird stuff?" No. And my dad got saved, I think, after he started going to a Luz del Mundo church. I don't know how that happened.
Interesting.
But he was in a bad place at one point in his life. And then he started looking for something. He started looking for answers. I need God. And then their slogan is "Pare de sufrir," stop suffering. So it's like, well, give it a try. Might as well, because he was in a very dark place, I think, because my parents got divorced, and then he couldn't find himself for a long time. And so he started going to these meetings. And I think after he started going to these meetings, he found another church that wasn't that weird, just a regular church. And that's when he got saved. And he started talking to me about the Bible, you know.
And this was before you got in contact with us?
Before.
Okay.
So after I told him, hey, I started going to church, he was happy. He was like...
So then he was on your side,
amazing.
but the other part of your family weren't too crazy about it.
Yeah, they thought it was crazy.
And what's their opinion now?
I think they still think I'm crazy, but it's more like they cannot argue why. Because I talk to them and I tell them why. And every time my mom comes and visits, he comes to church with us. He comes to downtown, preach. And I preach in Spanish. Bill preaches in English. And she nods, and sometimes even she says amen. And
oh yeah,
yeah. One of my aunts, she came to visit with my mom one time, and we took him to the preaching, and there was a drunk guy, you know, started making snarky comments at me like, hey, shut up, and you know, a regular thing. And because I preach in Spanish, and this is what gets me, because every time I speak in Spanish, I preach in Spanish, they tell me to shut up and to speak English. The Hispanic people tell me that.
Really?
I'm like, really? You look more Hispanic than me, dude.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's super weird. And this guy was a drunk Hispanic guy telling me to shut up and to speak English. so my aunt and my mom, they started yelling at him. No, tú cállate, you shut up and stuff. So they kind of bully him, and then he calmed down. And after the preaching, I wanted to talk to him. So in some sense, they like that I'm spiritual, let's say, but on the other side, they will not agree with me on everything.
What is it they don't agree on?
Of course,
mainly? The Virgin Mary.
Virgin, of course, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that one of my aunts, my mom has many sisters. She's a nun.
Oh.
So, wow. I mean, and we went to visit her in 2008. She lives in Spain. And she's, what do you call her? Claustral. She's on the inside now. She doesn't She doesn't go outside. She's not allowed to cloister. None. She's not allowed to go outside ever. So she just stays in the convent and does whatever they do, and that's it. They pray, they make rompope, I guess, and cookies, and they're awesome. But yeah, they never go out, and this doesn't help because she's a Catholic nun, of course. And she disagrees with me on being a Christian. But the main thing is that they don't know exactly why, except for that, because they say, you don't believe in the Virgin. I do believe in the Virgin. I don't pray to the Virgin. I don't believe she can save you. I don't believe you can go to Jesus through Mary. Like, that's what they say. Mm-hmm. I kind of figured out how they came to that conclusion after reading the Bible. But... on pretty much everything else, they're like, all right. They don't agree that when I say that I'm safe. They don't agree with that. They said you cannot know, but the Lord's saying you can be safe. Oh, but
yeah.
Okay, how do you argue?
Have they read the Bible like concertedly, actually like read through?
I don't think they have. I gave my mom a Bible. She says she reads it and I think, and she does, but I don't think she reads it critically, like thinking about the word. She's looking for a comforting passage,
right,
most of the time, or a nice story. But I think this is the way most people read it in the Catholic world. Not everybody, of course, but most of them, they're just looking for
I think most Christians read it that way too.
Well, that's true. Looking for a nice psalm.
Yeah.
Looking for an uplifting passage. And that's fine when you know
there's a place for that.
When you know what it says, you know, like if you're already saved and you're looking to go deeper into that, that's amazing. but I don't think they read it like that. We talk about salvation to my mom. I talk about salvation to my brother. Is a tough cookie to crack. I would like to talk more about salvation to him, but it's just hard because my brother is more brainy. He's a political science graduate, so he likes.
And he's still in Mexico?
Yeah, he lives in Mexico.
Okay.
He works for the Instituto Electoral.
Yeah, the Electoral Institute of Mexico?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that too, because this is amazing how political parties work in Mexico.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. But yeah, and then I met you guys. I remember you. This is weird because everybody was nice to me except one person, which is supposedly the most nice person that was there. But no,
Who?
no, I mean, I don't blame it. But we're best buddies now. Uncle John.
Oh,
he didn't like me.
Oh, he
Man.
didn't like you. That's
He
true.
didn't like me at all.
He was praying for many evil things on you.
Oh well, hey,
I don't know. I'm joking.
No,
I don't think-
probably.
John is on, I think. He had a message
Oh,
there.
they just
Yeah.
they're calling you out, John. They're calling you out.
No, but I totally understand why. You know, at first I was very standoffish too. Like, you're gonna give me a bad time, I'm gonna give you a bad time. And we were like that for a long time. And this is weird because the meanest guys like you and Bill, well, that's what I heard. Well, that's what I heard.
I'm not mean.
I didn't know you at the time.
My apodo is also the peluche.
I don't
That's
know.
my nickname.
I don't know. who
Teddy
calls you
bear.
that.
That's what people call me.
I don't know.
Right?
about
People
that.
call me that?
Nobody's ever said that about
No.
me.
I don't know about that.
Teddy bear, no one said no one never.
Never. Never.
Oh man. Yeah, that was super weird at first because I didn't know at the time that he was the nice one. Because
Well, how can he be the nice one if he's not the one being nice? Explain that to me.
time, no.
I'm the nice one.
yeah, everything was bizarro world. Everything was reversed. Yeah, and you have Bill. First time he met me, he was like, "Hey, let's go get some tacos." I'm like, okay, but I didn't know that was an anomaly.
You were like, Father, tacos.
Yeah. And one of the first things that I remember with you experiencing is that we had it was kind of a revival. There was a preacher coming from out of town, and you were asking, hey, we're gonna need meals.
I remember that.
Yeah, remember?
I do remember that.
And you were asking people who wants to provide for this missioner one day of the week. And I'll say, I can do that. I can do that one time. And then the day that it was supposed to be going to happen, and this supper outside after the preaching, you walked out to me and it's like, hey, so you're not gonna be able to take him, right? And yeah, why? Somebody called me and they say that they're not gonna be able, and I thought it was you, and you were all mad at me because I thought you told that I called you to tell you that I wasn't gonna be able to take the missioner out, and I was so mad because you were kind of like standoffish at first, like, so you're not gonna take it? No, yeah, I'm gonna take it, and then I said, I'm gonna take you, I'm gonna take Bill, and I took everybody. You remember that? That was amazing.
Yeah,
I don't
we went to tacos that night. And
I remember-
believe it was Esteban from Aguascalientes that was there.
I don't remember who he was.
I think it was him. It was a time that his brother had passed during that revival.
Man, I don't remember hardly any of
you
this.
don't remember that?
I don't remember. But I do remember you offering it because it made an impression on me that you were very new in the church and you were like, I'll take him. But I don't remember the rest of it. And I do distinctly remember not being mean to you. Distinctly remember.
At first.
No, ever. At any point in time, I distinctly remember that never happened.
Yeah, I was the one who made the call on that October. No. Well, that was the other thing. That was we had. I actually missed the meeting that Sunday that you guys got taken.
Oh.
Nah, I saw him. He was over there.
He was like-
He crossed the park with binoculars. happy, smiling.
No,
No,
the,
that one.
the other one.
Yeah, you should claim reverse racism on that one because they didn't take John.
I know.
Yeah.
They racially profiled
They
me.
racially
They racially
profiled
profiled me. There's
actively.
no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it.
That was
Because
a
my
sad
Spanish
day.
is a lot better than John's.
Oh, Uncle
It's a
Joe's
lot
getting
better
called
than
that a
John's.
lot. He's an amazing guy. But that was a sad day for the church, I tell you that. Because I don't think the church was ready to lose you all. John stayed for a while. Then Steve came to help. And they left to Puebla to continue the work. And man, after that, the church got hit like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
We got Edson going full Jewish.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. And this is weird because he started just as a kind of a messianic Jew. He started saying, well, the law and all that. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. As long as you keep to yourself, that's fine. But then I think he started praying in the name of Yeshua, and that's fine. But he started doing it in church, like trying to enforce it a little bit, saying this is the right way to do it. And then they forbid him to speak like that because he was causing division, not because it was wrong to say Yeshua. But he was saying this is not right. It was kind of undermining a little bit.
Mm.
So he got mad at that, and he started to flat out stop going to the meetings. Then I lost track of him. And the last thing I knew, he was kind of denying Paul's writings, but he was still saved. And after that, he, I don't know, man, like he went full Jewish and he denied the Lord. So I was like, wow, man. I told him, do you believe in Jesus Christ still?
Did his family go with him on that?
I think they did. Yeah.
Nah, it's too bad.
That is crazy because he was a big help in the church. He was one of the guys, one of my go-to guys, let's say, to ask him about doctrines and just Bible things.
Yeah.
Because he knew a lot. He knew some stuff. He knew passages. He knew where things were, where they originated from. And he was one of my guys. Let's say he was my friend. I used to go preach downtown with him. He used to come pick me up. Let's go preach. Okay. It was really, really sad. After that, many more started to drop out. And now it's a very small gathering.
Yeah. How many people are meeting there now?
I have no idea how many right now, but last time I visited, it was just like Tonio's family, me and Lena, and then Walter. I don't know if you remember Walter.
Yeah.
He's still faithful. And it's around 10 people, let's say. 15 at most. It's very, very sad. But yeah, it was crazy. After that, you guys left. I went to Spain. I think Lena was in Poland at the same time, or kind of at the same time. I stayed with my aunt for like 4 months.
In the nun?
Yeah, well, they have a separate...
okay.
Like for guests. Yeah. It's
like,
inside the building, but no. I was with my mom.
But with
too.
the nun, you
Yeah.
were visiting her.
Yeah.
Okay.
We went there because we wanted to visit her and see and just travel, just visit Spain. It's an amazing country. Very racist country, though.
Really? Why do you say?
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is that they have a lot of influx from Hispanic people, mostly from South America, Peru, Bolivia, all these countries that are not too good economically. So it's very easy for them to travel to Spain because there is no requirements. So it's just they go there and stay, and they start working. Just the same as here. But there's a sentiment too of kind of they look down on them because the economy is not that good in Spain.
But do you think that's racism? That gets me into where we're at today, and in the whole discussion going on right now in America too. Do you think that's racism? Because everyone calls these things racism.
Well, I haven't gotten to why.
Okay.
Not just because they immigrate, but because the economy is not too good in Spain, and they think they're taking our jobs thing. So they start calling ratios or like Sudaca, because it refers to all South American stuff like that. And they just look down on people, not systemically, but this is a perception of that. And what do you think about that? Like, is not that racism?
I don't think that's racism.
Okay.
I'm not saying I think it's good.
No,
right?
yeah.
I'm not. That's not my point. That would be to be analyzed at a different level. But I just don't see that as being racism. I think we have diluted the idea and the term of racism to where real racism is now not that bad in the eyes of. In reality, it's not. It can't be judged as bad as being such a horrible thing that it actually is, because it's been diluted.
Okay.
Right? I think real racism is one of the worst things that we can have in our hearts.
Right.
But when we dilute it and call every type of apprehension, of dislike, of disagreement, everything becomes racism. Now, real racism isn't that bad
it's not
anymore
bad, yeah.
because it's mixed up with everything else, right? It's like if we called every disease cancer. Well, then cancer all of a sudden would not be that big a deal. It's like, hey, what's wrong with you? Well, I have cancer. Oh, okay. Because that could be a cold. It could be allergies. If we called everything cancer, then having cancer would no longer be a big deal. It'd be like, well, it's whatever. You have cancer. You know, everybody has cancer.
No, you're right. I think I used it very lightly. You're right.
And I think it's common, but I know that people see it that way. So they'll look at, for instance, they'll look at that. They'll look at this instance where you have people coming from other countries, and because they're from other countries, they look different than where they're immigrating to. So, like people come from South America probably look different than people who are from Spain. And, then they'll say, well, we don't like these people here. Well, is it because they look different? See, that would be what where the source of racism or the foundation of it would be coming from. It's like, I don't like that person. It does not because they're from somewhere else. It's because they look different, because they have a different ethnic background, not because of anything to do with jobs or economy.
Or
None of that
country,
would be
yes.
factored in. But I think that you'll find that the Spaniards have a problem if the English were coming and taking away all their jobs in a bad economy. Is that racism? To me, it's diluting it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I used it very lightly. Yeah, you're right. But my experience over there was that of that perception. Maybe let's not call it racism, but they were kind of fed up because their economy was going down, and their perception is that there's people coming taking our jobs. And I even tried too, because I was staying for 4 months. I'm like, man, this is only so much. I cannot go out every day. This is so expensive.
Yeah.
And I went to this bar de tapas, which is a bar, but over there they serve.
It's like a bistro.
Yes, they serve food.
It's like a pub.
Yep. It's like a pub.
It's where it's like where that people go and eat. That's just it's not like a bar.
Yeah.
It's only open at midnight.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird. And this is weird because you go at 6 a.m, 8 a.m, and people are having breakfast, and this guy's having a brandy. Like they're drinking all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's crazy.
It is.
Yeah, and he'll drink his brandy with Coke in one sip, and he said, "Okay, I'm off to work," and then he'll come back at 3 and drink another 2 and go home. And this is like, wow, man, this is no way to live. And with each drink, they'll give you food. They give you tortilla española. They give you whatever. It's very nice. So I go to this bar de tapas, and I tell him, hey, he has a sign looking for a waiter. Like, yeah, I'm interested in that job. He flat out told me, I'm reserving that job for a Spaniard. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I wasn't like really offended.
Right.
I got it.
Yeah.
That's fine. I just not work then. So yeah, it was an amazing experience.
But did they ever fill the job?
I think I don't think so, because I used to go that route to go to this internet cafe because on those times, like 12 years ago, you used to have to go to the cafe to access a computer. You
Right.
have all these cell phones and stuff. So I used to go that route almost every day to go to this internet cafe that was real cheap. It was like €1 an hour. So it was cheap at the time. There were some others that charged 4. And the sign was still up. Still up.
Yeah. See, what do you think about that here in the U.S.? So you're here, you're working legally, but there's a lot of people. Like I'm almost constantly looking for people to work for me. It's very hard to find anybody. It's almost impossible to find anyone who's. I mean, I'll get lots of people say they want to, and
Right.
I even have them like say, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll take the job. I'll be there Monday," and they never show up. That's like. I would bet 80% of the people I hire never show up the first day. They call me asking for a job. I tell them, sure, I'll hire you. I pay them about twice what minimum wage is or
That's
more
nice,
than that. I usually start people out like 16 an hour
That's
or whatever.
awesome.
And they won't show up the first day. And so I'm very tempted to hire illegal aliens. Oh yeah, because they'll show up.
Absolutely.
And I know that I work in construction, so there's a lot of illegal aliens working in construction.
Yep.
And they're hard workers.
Yeah.
I see them all the time. We generally are like the ones that stay the longest at job sites of the trades. But the ones who stay longer than us are like the flooring guys. They're like crazy hard workers, the flooring guys. And
They're the hardest ones I've seen in any other trade is the flooring guys.
Yeah, they're really at it.
And I feel like they have the highest IQ and honestly out of all. Because they do flooring isn't as easy as I think most people give it credit for.
Yeah, flooring is hard.
They do their math and they do it right. I mean, they rarely do a bad job on flooring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're there and they're working, crazy hours. I've gotten there like at 6 a.m. They're already there. I leave that night at 6 p.m. They're still there working. They get back the next day and they've already done a huge hallway. So they worked a long time after and they're there again. And so I'm very tempted to do it. I don't hire anyone who doesn't work legally because I just don't want to be looking over my shoulder.
Right.
I mean, everything I do above board.
Yeah.
So I pay overtime and I don't do 1099s. I pay W-2s and withhold
nice.
tax. I do everything. And the
Everything
reason I
for
do
them.
it is because I do not want to be constantly worried that the government's going to come and find me or I want to live my life without worry.
Yes.
And so that's why I can't do it. I can't hire them. And it's not because I necessarily think it's immoral. I don't think there's anything immoral about them being here working or people hiring them. Right. I'm actually very much a free market economist.
Yes.
And so I don't have a problem with people coming to work, broadly speaking. But I don't want to be looking over my shoulder.
Yeah.
So it's not really a conviction. It's convenience. I'm just not interested in that kind of,
It's completely understandable.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So, there's all these jobs that are trying to hire. Unemployment it's very hard to hire people nowadays. And you have this contingency of people here that we could hire. What do you think about that?
Well, one of the first jobs that I had here, my first job actually, I didn't work for 6 months when I got here. I got married. I had a visa, K-12, K2 visa. No border patrol people, no border police people knew what that was. It's called a Fiancee Visa.
Yes.
Nobody knew what that was. Like, what kind of visa is this? Nobody comes here legally to marry. But after I got married, one of my first jobs, I didn't work for 6 months after I got married because I was waiting on my papers. I was waiting on my green card. I was waiting on my work permit. And people kept offering me jobs. Hey, why don't you go here, mow some lawns? Like, I want to, but I really don't want to get deported right away. I don't know.
Bye, honey.
So after 6 months, I got a job right away. Plumber's apprentice. One of Lina's friends was hiring one apprentice, a helper, And so I was like, I need a job. I take whatever. So I show up in my first job on a Monday, and I was sick as a dog. Like I had the flu or something. It was 100 degrees outside. It was August, and I was sick. And you know what I did? I was like, I had to show up for that job. And we were doing what you call it? We were doing water lines and stuff on the foundation. So there was no shade. So we were working on the foundation. There's no shade at all. I almost died that day, but I had to show up. And I think that's one of the things that most people don't have when you don't have a perspective coming from Mexico. When you say this is a good job, it's gonna pay me so much money. I make that money in a week, and I'm gonna make it in a day here.
Yeah.
When you have that perspective, when you have that kind of incentive, you show up. You show up to work. When you always have this thing that you are considered poor if you're making $15 an hour, you are poor, then you don't appreciate it as much. I think that's one of the things that most people get messed up with. These teenage kids that work in first jobs, and they say, I'm only gonna make $12. I'm only gonna make $10. You don't have the perspective. They don't have it. That is good and bad, because that's the lowest thing they know. But at the same time, they don't know that it can be lower than that, like zero. They can be nothing. And I think it's just that mentality. Most of the workers that you have or that you see that are immigrants, I think they have some of that mentality too. They have to make, and they know they can make a lot of money. They know they can send money back. They know if they work more, they get paid more. Not like in Mexico that you get paid the same. It doesn't matter the amount of work you do. You get paid the same. Depending on the job, of course, but for the most part. Like if you're a waiter, you're trapped.
Yeah.
You're not going to make much money, never. And it's really, really hard to make money in Mexico.
It is hard, and yet there's a lot of people that are making a lot of money also. I mean, Mexico is fascinating to me. I love Mexico. I always loved it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about Mexico is that everybody has a jale on the side. Everybody has a... Why are you laughing?
The slang, I love it.
Yeah. Everybody has a gig, right? They have something they're doing on their own, on the side of their real job. So they'll work in a factory or they'll work in some business or whatever, and they have a low-paying job that provides some level of some level of seguro of...
like taxi driving most, a lot of that.
Well, but yeah, a lot of them will have like a job that has seguro social, that has health care provided, health care coverage. And they'll work there basically for the health care coverage and the housing allowance that they get, the Infonavit. Exactly. And then almost every single person that I know has something they do besides that. Some little business they're running, whether it's selling pumpkin seeds in the park or have a tiny store in their house or a little pharmacy. I mean, and in Mexico, you just start that. You just do that. And there's stores everywhere. People who have gone to Mexico don't realize, every other house is a business.
That's true.
Every other house is a business. It's crazy.
Or it turns into one at night, like selling food and tacos. Exactly.
Yeah, and they don't even they'll just open the door and you walk in their living room and they'll be cooking on their stove and they'll make you tacos and you eat them. And they don't have health permits and none of that.
There's no red tape.
No. It's amazing how that is.
Well, that is.
And I love that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of red tape.
There's tons of red tape. It's crazy.
They just don't bother.
This is just ridiculous. Let's just skip it all together.
Yes, exactly. And so they don't do any of it. And as long as they stay small, the government just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? Going to arrest every other person in Mexico?
Well, they kind of done that sometimes. With the ambulantes, for example. They don't want to roam in the downtown area.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why. Because of looks. Yeah. I guess.
Well, because the downtown is that's economic. It's touristic, and those ambulantes are selling the same wares as the stores for a lot cheaper because they don't have any overhead. And so the police are going to run them out because they put those businesses out of business.
Right.
And the ambulantes, the people with the little carts and selling stuff there,
Yeah.
they're not paying taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the stores, the brick and mortar stores in the downtown areas, they're paying taxes.
Yeah.
And if they let those roaming vendors sell, well, they're going to put all
Take
their
the
tax
business
base
out.
out of it. Yeah, they
Yeah.
want them. They get, and that, to me, that just all is reasonable.
Yeah, I see that. I think I have a story about Nolan too, but I'll say that for later. It's an amazing story. we remember this one every once in a while, Lynn and me. But yeah, Mexico is an amazing place. It's
What
It's so
What do you miss about
colorful.
Mexico? What is it you most miss about Mexico? Tacos don't count.
well, everybody misses that. Yeah, it's just the overall feeling of just walk out the street and hear all this folklore. You know, you hear the paletero, you hear the pan,
The gas.
the gas. Well, I hate that
Like
guy
they
because
say
he
here, the
wastes
elotes,
water.
the elotes, the elotes, the elotes, the elotes. Hey, you want to go get some elotes?
Elotes. Who says that?
That's what gringos say. They're like, I'm like, the what? Yeah, the elotes.
Oh,
What
okay.
is that? It's like corn. They take corn and they put mayo on it and Parmesan
Yeah,
and chili
yeah.
powder. And it's the elotes. We
Yeah,
love them. They're
yeah.
delicious.
I hate the gas guy because he's so loud. He wakes you up. He disrupts everything. It's just like a melody, and he's like, it's just out of tune, man.
El gas.
Oh, he's just out of tune. I miss that. I miss all the walking. I think. I mean, it is. We were talking about this.
Anna,
Lena and me.
real quick, Anna says she misses the little store on the side of her house.
The
Yeah,
tiendita de la
tiendita.
esquina. That you could just go, like, walk 2 doors down and buy pretty much anything you
Buy
need.
a Coke,
A Coke, eggs,
buy chips,
4
whatever.
squares of toilet paper, and a cigarette.
Did you ever buy 4 squares?
hey, when you're desperate, you're desperate.
Might as well. Yeah, and two cigarros.
Yeah, it's crazy. You buy Lucy's and
Yeah.
anything that comes in a pack, they will
Yeah.
sell it to you.
Yeah.
Individual.
Get me 4 jalapenos out
Yeah.
of a big jar. They'll stick them in a bag. for
They'll
you.
open it up and
Yeah.
anything. They don't care. It's I love that about
And
Mexico.
the refresco en bolsa, the soda in the
Oh
bag.
yeah.
And just a straw in it.
Yeah.
That's amazing because
Yeah.
they don't want to give you the glass.
Yeah, you don't have to
container.
exchange. I always loved that. I mean, that was great.
Yeah.
You just go and they take the Coke, which was in glass bottles that
Mm-hmm.
had a what do they call that? You had I forget the word for it. You had to pay a deposit.
Oh, you had a deposit, yeah.
Had a deposit on the bottle, and so yeah, they you order it and they just take a like a Ziploc bag or just a plastic bag. They pour it in, put a straw in it, tie
There
a
you
knot,
go.
and
Your Coke.
That's your Coke. That's your disposable
Yeah.
cup. It's just a bag, which is great.
Yeah. And nobody
'Cause-
freaks about it. I mean, like,
Yeah, because when you're done, if you're not a litter bug, which
whoa, man, let's not talk
yeah,
about
but
that.
if you don't want to litter, you can just like fold it all up in a tiny thing, put it in your pocket. It's great. It's the greatest Mexican ingenuity. I love it.
That's the entrepreneur spirit. You
It
know,
is.
like the innovation
Yes.
at work.
Yes,
They
and they
find-
do crazy things like that. Lots of them.
And that's the thing. Mexicans find ways around everything.
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 Yes.
Isn't that what Bill Gates says, that he will hire the what's it called, the slouchiest, I mean, the laziest people on the job, because he'll find a way to do everything more efficiently with the less amount of effort. So that's the very definition of Mexicans.
Oh yeah, Mexicans are always looking for the shortcut.
for the shortcut.
Always looking
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
shortcut. There's always looking for the way to do something with the least amount of effort,
Yeah.
the least amount of expense, the cheapest way they can possibly do anything.
Everything's
Yeah.
makeshift.
You don't need a light switch.
No.
You just the 2 wires.
Oh,
You just
yeah.
hook them. You just hook the
Oh,
wires.
have you seen that on the internet? Just to ring the bell.
Yeah.
Just put together the
yeah.
wires. That is crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you don't have to spend any money. It works, and you forget about it. I mean, if you don't just really care about the looks, I mean,
That's right.
It's
No, I love that
it's
about
workable.
Mexico. It's fantastic.
I love that. I love that you can get just about anything to it. I don't want to get it. I don't want to get into food, because food is amazing.
Yeah, they have very good food.
And I love
The only thing I didn't like about the food, and we always had this problem in Mexico, is that you can only get one kind of food.
What do you mean?
Everything tastes like Mexican food.
You think?
Yes. So you go get Chinese food, and that's just guisado.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
It's guisado with soy sauce in
That's
it.
true. That's true.
Everything tastes the same. Now, I think they do. I think Mexican food is one of the best foods in the world, right? I think it's better than pretty much any other kind of food, in my opinion. But I like a lot of different kinds of food, and I like them to be really different. And Mexico, they don't. At least when I was there, a lot of that has to do with ingredients. So, like, Chinese food, you can't really get an authentic taste of Chinese food if you don't have the right ingredients.
Yeah, it is weird because how many times you try to recreate a Mexican dish here in the States and you get the ingredients, namely, nominally, and it just doesn't taste the same. I don't know why.
Yeah,
And-
we had to search high and low. Finally, somebody told me where we can buy authentic Mexican tortillas.
Really?
So now we can make real Mexican tacos. So much better.
Is it really true?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's like they're real. They have a tortilleria. They have the máquina. They make it out
Oh,
of
wow.
corn. They use the cal. Yeah.
You gotta let me in on that.
We'll see. We'll see how the podcast goes.
Okay. All right.
We'll see about the body pass.
We'll see about that. We can talk about that.
No, yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. You get that because American tortillas are sweet.
Yes.
They're Swedish and they
Yeah.
have a sweet flavor to them, and they just don't, and they fall apart.
And they fall apart.
Yeah, no,
That's what I
these are
hate.
these are just you would think you're eating a Mexican taco. So we make tacos all the time.
I
down
love
here.
the tortillas just straight out of the machine or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I love it just straight out. I don't want to
Yeah.
reheat it. Once you reheat it, they're bad for me. They're
Uh-huh.
done. But yeah, okay, you want to talk about...
Well, I wanted to ask you about more about Mexico and
then-
that and the political system in Mexico. So you said
Sure.
they lean left.
mostly.
Did you lean left when you were in Mexico?
When I
Before-
was in Mexico, I'm going to say apolitical or kind of, because I just really didn't care.
Yeah, but what was your you had to have had a worldview.
Kind
So
of.
were you more socialistic? Because most
I was
Mexicans
more
are socialist.
I was more socialistic. And it never rung a bell until I got here. It never rung a bell that there was a communist party in my country, or a socialist party, as I should say. There's a Partido de Trabajo, which
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's just straight up socialist.
Yeah.
And nobody freaks out about that. You know, like, oh yeah, we have this and this and this. And you don't say, oh, that's a socialist, that's a commie country, that's a red party. No, nobody's like, yeah. And they never win. But that's the other thing. The political system or the political parties in Mexico are set up, they are provided for by the state,
Yeah.
which is just stupid. You have to have certain amount of adherents,
Members.
members, and to become a political party.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you can claim funding from the state, and they will give you some certain amount of money depending on how many people you have in your party. That's why sometimes you have people go into your house trying to sign you up for the PRI, for the PAM, for whatever, so they can claim you as a member, so they can get more money from the state. And this is completely. I just don't get it.
You see the contrast between, let's say, the U.S. and Mexico on this.
Mm-hmm.
So Mexico's done this to avoid a two-party system, because that's what you that is what you will if you leave if you don't have undue influence in the electoral process, you're going to end up with a two-party system. You have to push it away from that if you don't want that. And a lot of people in the U.S. don't like that we have a two-party system, and they want there to be more parties. But there's never going to be more than two parties, because people know how to do the math, and they know that voting for a third or fourth party means you're not going to ever win. And so you're going to align yourself with the largest bloc that is that most closely resembles your views, right? Even if it's not perfect. But if you can somehow come up with a pressure like Mexico's done, like in this instance, where they give money to parties and they basically subsidize the existence of these parties, then these parties can win seats in the diputados, which is where most of them have their place, right?
Yeah.
they're in the diputados. That's where it's very fractured into
Yeah.
tons of parties.
Yeah.
And that's because the government is subsidizing the existence of those parties. If they quit doing that, Mexico would become a two-party system. I think it'd actually become almost a one-party system.
It's almost like that. I was gonna go do that because even though there is many parties, it seems almost as if there was only two, because all these, I don't know, I think you know, but they do these collusions. They're allied. The parties like, okay, I'm a very small party, I'm gonna ally with you, and they suddenly become one. So they mix their resources. They do everything together. So it ends up being a kind of a two-party system because you almost end up with the PRI against PAN, the revolutionary party against the Acción Nacional party. You always end up with those two most of the time until now.
But
with
what
AMLO.
is the difference between those two parties in reality?
I have no idea. I can tell
I
you
find
that
no differences.
They just they both want power. They both want the same things. I just don't know the difference. I cannot tell it. That's what I'm saying. Even though you have this many, you end up with two options. Because if you vote for the Partido del Trabajo, the Socialist Party, you know you're not gonna win. And you end up with two options for the real elections, for the presidential, for the governmental elections, and they just implement the same systems. They don't have a new thing. Let's say it's all very socialist, and that's the other thing that is.
What I find disturbing about Mexican politics is that there is no option for anybody who's not a socialist.
That is no option.
There is no option. They call PAN the center right, and they call them the more conservative party
Yeah.
from using English or using American terminology.
Mm-hmm.
They would be considered the conservative
Right.
party because they're socially conservative, right? They're generally against abortion because they're tied very closely to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So that's the real distinction
Yeah,
that I
that's the only
find
one.
between PAN and the rest of the parties.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
they are more religious oriented. So they would be a lot like the Republicans in that way, and like the socially conservative Republicans in that sense.
Yeah.
But economically, they are all
the
the same.
same.
I find no differences.
difference
I
at all.
read their platforms every election cycle. I download their party platforms. Excuse me. I download their party platforms. I read them every election cycle. As far as economically, governmentally, no difference. They're
Not at
the
all.
same thing.
Yep.
They're arguing over nothing.
Yep.
And there is no party that represents any libertarian or liberal, classical liberal viewpoint.
Not at all. And that's the other thing. People ask you, what are you on the political spectrum, dude? I don't know. I mean, I borrow from conservatism. I borrow from the liberals. I want a small government. I want them to stay out of my pockets as much as they.
That's actually one thing we all agree on.
I'm all for private property, free market. I want all these things, and Mexico doesn't have many options on this issue. It's all safety nets. It's all safety nets in Mexico. We're gonna do this program. We're gonna implement this other social program, and they all fall apart, and they all do nothing. And all the parties are proposing the same stuff with different names.
When you came to the States, what stood out most to you as being different? Did it seem different to you?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, what was like took you aback? You're like, wow, this is different. Speaking politically.
There was an actual sense of freedom, of do whatever you want. I'm not talking anarchist. I'm talking do whatever you want within the law. You can own whatever you want. You do whatever you want in your land. If you're outside of San Antonio.
Yeah.
If you're outside of San Antonio, you can do whatever you want. And you see all these crazy people doing whatever they want when they're out in the country. It's like, what is going on? And I saw that you kept a lot of your money. Most that you keep in Mexico, or you can make more money. You can actually have a future in which you own your own house, you own your cars, and you can start a business, and nobody's gonna get in your way, and you're not gonna have to go through all these hurdles of red tape, of mordida, bribes.
Yeah, the corruption.
The corruption is so rampant.
What was
That's
your
the other
experience dealing with policemen here?
Well, that's the other thing. You don't go to policemen in Mexico.
No.
You don't go to them. If you value your life or whatever you have left after somebody robbed you, you don't go to them. Well, my experience here with policemen is I haven't had any experiences like bad. They have pulled me over a couple times because I live near Windcrest. I live right next to Windcrest. I share fences with Windcrest, so they pull me over like left and right. Well, only 3 times, but they're very nice. They have been nice to me. They pulled me over with no actual.
It's not because you were speeding?
No, because I was speeding or because.
So what did they say?
It was just because it was late at night and I was getting out of work. It was 1 a.m. Like, they just made up something. You didn't use your turn signal. I did. I was turning into my street, And he, well, were you trying to get away from me there? Like, no, I live right there. Because I took a turn and he took it as I was trying to
evade him,
lose him or something.
Okay.
So I was like, no, I live right here. Like, where? Like, right there. And I was like 2 houses from my house. So like, okay, I'm just checking on everybody here, like just showing my license and stuff. Another time I was in Windcrest and I was pulled over again. I wasn't speeding. I was doing 20 miles. And he's like, where you going? I'm going to the postal office. Can I see your driver's license? But my driver's license says Windcrest for some reason. Instead of saying San Antonio, it says Windcrest. I guess because they're right next to you.
Right.
And so he saw that and he said, oh, no, it's all right. Just checking.
That's interesting.
One guy gave me a ticket on a speed trap. And maybe you know what this is. It's by that Methodist church on Windcrest and going into where Freeborn Church was. Mm-hmm. There is a small portion of that road that is a school zone. And it goes from 40 miles to 25. And there is no sign. So there is a cop that it's always there at the end of the month. I don't know why. I don't know why at the end of the month this happens. But it's always there. And he's just pulling people left and right, giving tickets. And he got me because I was doing 32 on a 25 and it was 40 before. But that's been my only experience. That I have no problems with police.
See, some people would say that when they pulled you over without cause, in other words, without you doing anything wrong, that's racism.
I think it's what they call profiling.
Do you think they looked through your window and saw you're Hispanic and that's why they pulled you over?
It might have been because the guy was driving like towards me and then he did a U-turn. And then my truck is a little beat up in the rear. So they might have been like, what is this guy doing in Windcrest? It doesn't look like a Windcrest car.
Right.
So it just, out of caution, I guess. Maybe he didn't look at me, but he looked at my car, whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that. As long as you're not trying to pin something on me.
Right.
You want to see my license? Yeah, okay, there you go.
See, when I moved back, I lived almost all my life in Mexico. Mm-hmm. So I moved there when I was 8. Was when my parents moved there. And I grew up in Mexico. We came to the States for a couple years in between for whatever reason, but for basically from the time I was 8 to the time we were deported, which was when I was, I don't know how old I was. I guess I was 30 something. Lived in Mexico. So everything I knew was Mexico. Everything. I never lived in the States, didn't have a business, never worked here, nothing. So when I came to the States, that was like, almost like you come into the States.
Wow.
It was like complete. So like the driving, I had to learn to drive again because I was a Toluca driver.
Oh no, man!
I was a Toluca driver. Yeah. They didn't intimidate me there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was aggressive, and so I had to learn to drive it. Had to learn to drive properly, which I still the Toluca comes out of me sometimes.
Oh, whoa.
Sometimes it's like when someone thinks they're not going to let me into a lane, it's like you kidding me?
Yeah.
You lightweights.
Yeah, I know.
I can get in if I want to get in.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I can get you up
Whenever I want. I get in. It's like I know all the tricks.
Yeah.
But no, the big thing was the way I looked at the police.
Oh,
I didn't, it was anytime any policeman approached me, I'm automatically already
standoffish.
Yes, and apprehensive and suspicious.
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, because that's how I was in Mexico.
Yeah.
Anytime a policeman came up, it's like, "What do you want?" They're like, "You're going to shake me down. What are you trying to do?"
Oh.
That's how it was in Mexico. I never had an interaction with the police that was positive.
I never had that kind of interaction here. In Mexico, yeah. Totally.
You didn't feel that way
No.
when you first talked to the police? You didn't feel like the way you feel in Mexico, where you're just like, you're ready for a fight?
Not really. It was weird because I had this mentality that the police in the States is not corrupt. And the police in Mexico, it is. It totally is. So I felt secure. Like, if I do what they tell me, it's going to be all right. Because there is so many safety, what do you call it, the devices implemented in this that they just cannot get away with everything. If I pursue this, if I get a lawyer or whatever, it will actually go through.
Yes.
In Mexico, you get a lawyer, you do whatever you want. Man, you're going to lose your money.
No, you're not going to accomplish anything.
No.
Yeah.
Even mostly against the police, but even if somebody robs your house or even kills somebody, if you go to the Procuraduría, the police
the
department,
district attorney.
Yeah, they're just gonna take your statement and they're gonna close it out. They're gonna put it in a cabinet and forget about it.
Yeah.
And unless you are somebody with influence, which most people are not. But yeah, I never had that impression here in Mexico.
It wasn't the impression of the police here. It was just that built into me.
Oh, the build.
Yeah, because I dealt with the police. I don't know how much you dealt with the police in Mexico. I dealt with them all the time.
Not a whole lot.
All the time. So it's constant. They're constantly coming out at the preaching, trying to get me to stop preaching. They're constantly pulling me over,
on the way,
profiling me and pulling me over, trying to get
money out of you. Every time we went to his parents' house in Real, you'd get pulled over just about every single time in Mexico City.
Oh, because your plates.
Oh yeah, I'm American plates.
Yeah,
I'm Weddle. I'm white and blue eyes, and then I'm not under the radar either. So I have all of that plus. I'm standing out on the street corners and I'm preaching. So we're constantly. It's a constant dealing with the police, and it got to the point in Mexico where I would not give them any respect. I would just talk to them like they were children. I just no, especially if I wasn't preaching. If they pulled me over in the car, I would just tell them as soon as they walked up, say, I don't pay bribes. Ooh. You're just wasting your time. You want to haul me off, I won't give you a penny. I'm not giving you a penny. I'm not paying bribes. You guys are all corrupt and I want nothing to do with you. And they were just like, we
didn't expect this.
Yeah. I said, and I would be speaking Spanish. And I said, I've been here for 20 some years. I know the game.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, I know your game. I know what you do. Yeah. I know all your tricks. Don't waste my time.
Yeah.
If you're really going to take me in, haul me off or something, just do it because I'm not giving you a penny.
It's just corrupt, man. That's something that pains me in Mexico. I don't see how can they fix this problem. I don't see how can you fix this, because all the good ones that want to change, they kill them. If you're a good politician, if you're a good policeman, they just kill you because you're not taking bribes, because you're not playing the game.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that movie with Al Pacino, Serpico. He was a good policeman. It's based on reality in New York City, I think it was. This officer, he wouldn't take bribes. He wouldn't work with the mafia, and the police department was so corrupt that everybody was in. And he wouldn't give in. And everybody was, kind of standoffish with him. I don't know if this guy is gonna rat us out. And he's like, I'm not gonna rat you out. I just don't want in your games. I'm gonna be a good policeman. And they didn't like him. And at the end, of the movie, all these colleagues, what do you call it, the policemen, they were with them, his own team, they were doing a bust, and they just kind of stood back, and he got shot in the face because he didn't get any help, and they were like, we're not gonna help him. And that's exactly what's going on in Mexico, you know?
Yeah.
Well, not exactly, because at least their own friends, they didn't kill them, but they let him hit the guy. But they didn't help him. But in Mexico, they will kill you.
Yeah.
They will kill you. Your own friends will kill you. And in this being, I don't want to say the story of Mexico, but pretty much since the Mexican Revolution in 1910, and through 1920, when the first political party started, by the PRI started in the 1920s, the late 1920s, it's always been this way. It has been a power behind the power. There was this guy called Plutarco Elias Calles, who was the head of the PRI, because the founder died, Álvaro Obregón died, so he left the party to Diaz Calles. And this was all after. It's just a mess. I mean, I wouldn't have enough time to talk about it.
Yeah.
This is 20
No,
years.
the history of Mexico, especially from that time to now, is a disaster.
Yes. And there's been some good, like Lázaro Cárdenas, who tried to do good by nationalizing the oil companies.
Do you think that was good?
No. But he tried. I said he tried.
He tried. I'm torn on that. I'm torn on that. I don't know what your view of or take on, or I shouldn't take what your understanding. I'll tell you what I understand happened, and you can correct me if I'm not getting the facts right.
I'll try.
But how I understand the facts is that the foreign oil interests, they challenged the country. So, excuse me. The country had passed laws regarding how the oil was going to be handled, and
They wanted more taxes too.
more taxes.
Yeah.
Exactly. They raised taxes on the oil and stuff, which is within a country's right to do so.
Right.
And the foreign oil companies basically snubbed them. They basically said, we're too powerful.
Yep.
You can't do anything about it. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the country, of the government, and against the oil interests. And they just basically said no.
Yep.
Trusting that because they represented large countries that Mexico would not want to go to war, and so they would just take their lumps. And Lázaro Cárdenas said, no.
Yep.
Actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to just take it all away and expropriated it all, nationalized it, and paid them back in chickens.
Yep. That's exactly what happened.
What happened, right?
That's exactly what happened. The other thing I will add is that the workers were pretty unrestful. Were restless. I think that's the word. Were restless because they were being paid very, very low wages. They were worked overtime without pay. And so the workers, the people were pushing for this too. So Lázaro Cárdenas was listening to both sides, like, yeah, we can get more money and we can get people what they want too. So that, and that's the other thing that plagues Mexico, the unions.
It's terrible.
It's just amazing, man. And that's how the Pemex started. The Pemex union started. But yeah, that's what happened. I think it was England that owned like 90% of the oil companies, in the United States only like 10% amongst other countries. But those were the main ones. England like 90 or probably 85, something like that. And they say, yeah, we don't believe you. Like you said, we don't believe you're gonna do anything because we are too powerful.
Yeah.
We just bringing in too much money. And if you as much as try to raise our taxes, we go to Saudi Arabia, we go to South America. We already have oil wells drilling over there, and he took the chances and he said we're still gonna nationalize.
Yeah.
And,
So on that side of it, I think that they're not allowing to be put. They can't allow a country can't allow a company to push them around like that.
Right.
And especially not foreign interest
Right.
companies. Can't allow that.
Yeah.
That's an act of war, right, from a private citizen,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
But you just can't allow that. But on the other side, I think that the solution implemented was terrible for Mexico.
It was terrible.
The nationalizing of Pemex was a disaster.
It was a good intention. People still love Cardenas. People still love, and they call it Tata. Grandpa, something akin to that, because he really was interested in people's affairs, in the wellness of people. He wanted to do good by them, and to have a good living. But he didn't measure the consequences of this. I think, and that's one of the consequences that the union started. And once they kick out all the foreign companies, they kick out the technicians too. They didn't know how to operate these things.
They didn't know how to make gasoline out of the oil.
They didn't know how to do
They had
anything.
a lot of problems.
Yeah. So this was a very, very slow process. And the Pemex union started to gain a lot of power. And it became a monopoly. Became a monopoly that it was designed to help the Mexicans, but it ended up hurting them.
Well, that's a problem with all those type of systems. They don't help people. They don't work. I've had the hardest time convincing my Mexican friends that all of their labor protections, labor unions, that is the reason why they're poor.
Yep.
I cannot convince hardly anybody of that. I work on that every time I go to the school. This Bible school I do in Mexico, every school, one of the topics I teach is why you're poor, basically. It's not called that, but that's essentially what it is. It's why you're poor. And the reason why, and this is from my perspective, the reason why Mexicans are predominantly poor is because of all their labor protections. They cannot get better wages because it's the most expensive country in the world to hire somebody. That's what American companies didn't realize when they went in. So when NAFTA got started and all the American companies set up factories in Mexico, they didn't realize how expensive it was to hire Mexicans because they were only looking at the wages. So when you look at how much you're going to pay in wages, you're like, oh, this is great. We're going to get all this labor for very little money.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out, there is an enormous amount of money you have to pay above wages in Mexico. Huge. Huge.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so the companies are never going to pay higher wages because it raises those incidental expenses. It raises Seguro Social, the health care you have to provide through the government healthcare system. That's outrageously expensive.
Yeah.
My dad owned a business, and it's ridiculous how expensive. And in Mexico, you probably know this, but in Mexico, you can sue your employer for free. The government will prosecute the case, and you can continue to sue them forever until you win. So let's say you're my employer, and I can make up a charge that's not even true. I can say you fired me, even though he says I never fired him. He's still on the payroll, and he can come back today and still be working. He's not fired. It doesn't matter. I can say you fired me, even with zero evidence. I don't have to show any evidence, and you can show all the evidence in the world, and I can say you fired me. And the government will sue you for me. And if I lose, I can sue you again, and again until I win. But once you lose, you can never appeal it. Once the employer loses, that's it. The case is closed. He cannot appeal it. And if it takes 10 or 12 or 15 years for me to win, you have to pay me my wages and all my benefits for the 15 years I've been suing you for.
Wow.
As if I had been working for you for those 15 years.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And you have to get your own lawyer as a business.
Oh yeah, no, the lawyer, you have to pay for your own lawyer. That's right. And the employee doesn't even have to show up to court or show up to the hearing. The government will do it without the employee. The employee can file the suit and then go on with their life, get another job, go to work, and then when they win, and they eventually will win, because they'll sue until they win. And when they win, you have to pay them everything that they would have made with you for the whole time they were suing you.
Yeah.
That's how the system works.
This is crazy.
It is crazy.
But here in the States, there is something akin, the teachers union.
It's similar.
It's very similar. Well,
Not nearly as bad. Not nearly as bad. But
yeah.
it has the same. It has the fundamental flaws
Yeah.
of a union.
And I always show to people a web page. It's a union. It's a union of union workers. You know, the union workers
have their
unionized.
own union.
Now you tell me why they need protection. Because they don't trust their own unions?
Yeah, I know.
What is going on here?
I know, it's crazy. Here's the thing I can't get through with my Mexican friends on this. I tell them, you don't need these things.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need these protections. And they're like, no, we do need them because the employers will abuse us. So I ask them, where would you rather work? Would you rather work legally in Mexico or illegally in the United States? Well, they all say illegally in the United States.
Why is that?
Well, because I'm talking about looking at it financially.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
they would do
yeah,
that, but
yeah.
if you're just looking at the finances, I would ask you, would you rather have a legal job in Mexico, financially speaking, or an illegal job in the United States? Which one would pay better?
Pay, yeah, the States.
That's right. Okay. What protections do the illegal workers in the United States have? Zero protections. Zero. So they realize that it is financially more profitable to have a zero protection job than a fully protected job in Mexico.
I think you're right.
And I cannot convince them.
Yeah.
They have no minimum wage protection. They have no Social Security. They have nothing, zero protections, and they make more money. You don't make money because of protections.
Yeah. And it is a problem in let's say, like, promotions. You don't get the finest guy. You get the most senior guy.
That's right. Well, that's by law.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because in Mexico, if you have two workers and you call them the same job, you have to pay them the same amount.
Yeah. The unions is a subject on itself. It's just really crazy.
The problem is,
work.
though, in Mexico, it's not just unions that are bringing this. It's the entire political system.
Oh yeah, no. I'm just saying it's part. Oh wow. Man, the problems of Mexico.
Yeah, the labor laws in Mexico is like a huge book, and it's like 15 pages of it apply to the employer or his protections, and all the rest is the employee.
Wow.
And Mexicans live their lives with the mentality that they need the government to protect them, which to me is the fundamental flaw in Mexican in the Mexican political system.
Yes, they want everything provided by the state. They vote in whoever offers the most social programs, whoever appeals to them more like that. Who's going to give the despensas? So, like what would you call that? The groceries or whatever.
Yeah, the food stamps.
The food stamps. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Who's going to give him this? Who's going to give him that in a certain way? Who's more appealing to give me free stuff? And this is a bad way of thinking. Because we know it. They're not gonna give you the real stuff that they're getting. For example, all these salaries that they set up for themselves, for the diputados, for all the workers who are making the real money, and they're just gonna give you kind of crumbs. Like you're gonna be happy with some food stamps. And they think that the next politician is going to change everything. I think that's everywhere, but
it is everywhere, and that also to me comes from a fundamental flaw in their thinking. And is another thing I try to work on with them, and I haven't had a lot of success. But I don't think Mexicans understand that the reason why the country is so corrupt is because the country is so corrupt. It's not just the politicians. The politicians aren't sprouting out of hell.
Right.
They're just coming out of the people.
Yeah.
And it's the people, it's the entire system of the country.
Yeah.
From the down to the little lady selling verduras using weights that are not accurate. Right? It's the entire system. It's all based on a system of corruption. It's interesting to me that was what the the American soldiers and leadership in the army observed when they took over Japan at the end of World War II. The end of World War II, a number of American leaders, military leaders, because they were in charge of Japan after they won the war, wrote some memos. Yeah, on how Japan was. And Japan, they said, they were very lazy and very corrupt. And so, to me, that's a very, very heartening thing because Japan isn't that way anymore.
No, not at all. It's totally opposite.
Totally different than how it's described at the end of World War II. So something happened in Japan that changed their entire culture. And so I really have high hope for Mexico, that Mexico could change.
Right.
And I think we're starting to see, like, I wouldn't call it a wave because it's way too small to be a wave.
Yeah.
But a little ripple coming to the shore of Mexicans who are becoming aware of right-leaning mentalities, that are coming aware of free market ideas, of the problems of socialism and those things. And we're starting to see these ripples coming in. And I just think if we could get a right-wing leader, someone who comes out who understands these things
and
can articulate them and doesn't get killed, but can articulate them, I think things could change. I think Mexico has all the potential to be a massive nation,
Mexico,
a world power.
We all know that the resources Mexico has are without equal.
Yes.
Crazy. I just like crazy. There is a joke that I heard since I was a kid, and it was about God making Mexico. Let it be a cornucopia. The horn of plenty. And everybody was like, why do you make Mexico so rich? And the answer is like, well, you see what kind of people I put in. You know? So let's balance the things. And I know, and this is another thing I wanted to talk to you about. Me as a Mexican, I'm not allowed to criticize Mexico. Let's say,
You'd be seen as a traitor.
I'd be seen as a traitor. I'm already seen as a traitor for marrying a girl that's American and moving over here.
See, that's why I think Mexico is one of the most racist nations I know.
It is, but it's more of a classist. Classist. I'm sorry. Yeah, a classist kind of division. Say if it's more between poor and rich, and it's also between. It's also almost like a I forget the word. It's like a dynamist, or I think it's something like that. Meaning it's the cities against the rural. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Mennonites.
No.
Okay.
Like the Chilangos, the DF, the Mexico City against the provincias.
Oh yeah.
It's that
There's
view
a lot of that
people that are from the rural,
from
the rancho.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And it's not just one way.
Yeah.
The rancho people
they
really
hate the city.
They hate the city
yeah.
people.
Oh yeah, they hate the city people.
They hate the city people.
And there is a lot of like I say of classist kind of thing, because you would think it's kind of a racial thing. Sorry. That they will see you kind of darker skin and they will be racist against you. But I go to markets and if they see me dressed, I don't dress like elegant or anything, but they see me dressed more.
You don't bling it up when you go back to Mexico?
I don't. I do not. but they'll still see you as with some kind of strange eyes if you see if you look more with more money, let's say. And this is the thing, that you go to the taco stand and they call you güero. And they would call me güero.
They would call you
and
güero?
I'm like, are you making fun of me or what is going on here?
That's what's hilarious. I know it's off topic. It was real funny about Mexico how they use those terms that here would be very offensive.
Yeah.
If you walked in a store and they called you brownie, That people would be like furious, not just you. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
anybody listening, that would be like, they would be calling and trying to get him arrested for some type of crime.
Hate crime.
Yeah, hate speech. Yeah, but in Mexico, that's common. That are terms of endearment.
That is very
Whitey,
common.
brownie,
Yeah.
fatty.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Preto.
fatty.
Yeah,
Big ears.
Yeah.
Hey, big nose. It's like,
yeah.
it's like.
But that's so
I love
funny.
that about
It's
Mexico.
so funny.
It's like so politically incorrect. It's
so
hilarious.
politically
They call their
incorrect.
wife fatty.
Yeah.
Hey, gorda.
Hey, gordita. yeah.
If I did that, I wouldn't be alive anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
She'd be, hey, daddy.
It's just so funny. But that's the thing that if they think you have a little bit of money, let's say you're a good customer, they go ahead and call you widow, even though they look like me, you know. Like,
Because they think that being widow is a
yes.
good thing.
they relate,
And
the
that's why I'm
two.
talking about the racism.
Yeah, but I know you're going that way, but that's why I brought it up. I think they confabulate the two, but I don't see the skin color being as much as a problem.
Well,
in races.
white babies are considered prettier in Mexico than dark babies, generally speaking.
I think that's everywhere.
Maybe, but it doesn't mean it's not the case in Mexico.
Well, yeah, but the Mexicans,
But I've
like,
never
they go
seen
like really
it that
crazy.
I know. If they're widow, they want to
yeah.
touch their hair.
Güerito, yeah.
The baby's beautiful. I knew a family that had a daughter that came out real white, real blonde, real white, and the other one was real dark. It's real interesting. They're the same parents, but
Yeah,
one
yeah.
is real dark and one's real white. And the real light one in Mexico would always get compliments how beautiful they were.
Of course.
And the
Yeah.
only difference was they looked very much the same.
parents.
Yeah, the baby, to me, both girls looked equally beautiful. I thought they were beautiful girls.
Mm-hmm.
But for many, not all, and I'm not trying to tar a bunch of people, but
okay.
but this is just my experience, and it was interesting to me that they have that view that white is better. Being whiter, being weddle, being not as dark is better. Very strange.
Yeah.
And yet they'll always accuse Americans of being racist.
Oh, they accuse Americans of everything.
Yeah.
Of being everything, you know, and that's another point I wanted to talk to you about. Me and Lena talk about that too. Mexicans hate the states, of the idea of the states, or people from the states in general, but they kind of love everything about the states. You know,
I think a lot of
culturally.
it is envy.
I think so.
I think they envy the United States, their prosperity, their stature in the world, their importance in the world. I think there's a lot of envy associated with that, and I think there's also a good amount of the U.S. that they legitimately are upset about with the U.S.
Yeah.
The U.S. is we throw our weight around. And we pursue our national interest, and we do things that benefit us, even if it doesn't benefit other people.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Yeah.
But I understand countries that won't like that. If Mexico became the world power, right? Let's say Mexico goes to war with the U.S. and wins. Have you ever heard that joke?
No.
They're sitting the Mexican president in the
It happened
cabinet.
100 years ago, actually.
The Mexican it didn't come out too well. The Mexican president is sitting around the cabinet with his cabinet, and they're trying to figure out how to solve their economic problems. And they're coming up with all these crazy ideas what they can do. Finally, one of his cabinet members says, "I know what we can do. Let's declare war on the United States." And they're like, "What are you talking about? How is that going to help us?" And he says, "Look at Germany. Look at Japan. Look at every country. You declare war on the United States, you get rich.
You get destroyed
And
first.
everyone's getting excited. They're like, hey, this sounds great.
Yeah.
And then one of them says, but what if we win?
All right. Yeah.
No, but,
No, yeah, I understand.
but I think if
a good
Mexico
joke.
was the world power, I think the U.S. would have very much the same feelings towards them.
Yeah, I think it's some thinking that we have as humans, as rage against poor, the socialist thinking. You know, like why don't I have as much as you? Why don't you do me good now that you're doing so good? It's a lot of that, but the thinking is, and Europe fell to this thinking. Europe fell to this thinking a lot. with the refugees and all the people that are taken in, because they have some sense of guilt of the colonialism, all the things that they have done in the past as a country, not as a people, because the people is obviously different.
Yeah.
But they don't see it like that. Like Germany, this guilt they have because of World War II, even World War One. But World War II is the main guilt they have for the war, and they will never live it up. They will never, and then they're trying to atone for that. What are the other people? What are the other countries doing? They're appealing to that. They're appealing to that, and they're appealing to that guilt, and they're falling to that. And they took, I don't know how many thousands of refugees, all these European countries, and they're losing their identity. They're gonna be minorities in 20 years.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna be minorities in their own countries because of this sense of guilt, because they have lost their own identity. And the same is happening to the States. There is a warning there that you're losing your identity.
Well, Abraham Lincoln pretty much predicted a lot of this in a way. One of his famous speeches, he said that justice wasn't going to be appeased, wasn't going to rest until every drop of blood drawn from the whip was paid back by the tip of the sword.
Wow.
Talking about
Yeah,
slavery.
slavery.
Yeah. And that's the problem. See, there were even more prescient founders, Americans, way back in the founding of the U.S., that warned that if we did not get rid of slavery, we were going to pay the price for that sin for
Forever.
for forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we still are.
Mm-hmm.
Much of the unrest, much of the problems in America, are because we're paying for the sin of slavery.
Yeah.
Blacks are not in any financial position today because of slavery. That is not. People say that it's slavery, it's the legacy of slavery, is why they can't get ahead. That's pure nonsense. It's been disproven by data so many times. It pains me to even try to go back through it. But like Thomas Sowell has gone through and shown that there is no way to make that case logically or through any data. But where slavery has affected the U.S. is that it gives the blacks something to feel victimized by, even though they themselves are not victims of it, but they can claim historical victimhood. And it gives the whites something to feel terribly guilty about, like what you're saying.
Yes.
And then it creates this dynamic of us versus them.
Yeah.
Of this distinction that we're not the same people.
Yeah.
And it gives us something to try to pin that on.
Yeah.
And even though it's all basically fictitious today, there is no reality today in that. There is no element of slavery has anything to do with reality today. None of it.
Yeah.
But it has everything to do in the perception of people.
It really does. I like to talk about this because if you start the conversation like this, like speaking as a Mexican, then you have a head up. You have a leg up.
You get to make that case a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And I like to speak about this because I like I say, I like to think that I have a lot of perspective being a foreigner. Where was I going with this? Yeah, I was talking about Europe, and let me give you an example about that guilt. I read about this boy that was he died in the shores of Turkey. I don't know how he died, I don't remember, but his family had applied for a visa in Canada. It was denied. It was denied because they are not refugees. They weren't refugees. Turkey is not in a refugee situation. They had jobs. They weren't just claiming political asylum in any case of that.
Right. They weren't a persecuted class.
Yeah, they weren't
or
persecuted or anything. So the visa was denied, but the kid died somehow. It was tragic. I think it was 3 years old. It was very, very sad. There was an outrage. I think it was 2015. There was an outrage in the Western world. We have to do better. We have to do better than this. We have to. It was Mariano Rajoy from Spain. He was the prime minister at the time. We have to do better because we're losing credibility. Okay, and I always try to polarize this. Is Turkey gonna lose credibility for this? Is Africa gonna lose credibility? All the other countries that could have taken them, or why is it only the Western world that loses credibility when something happens? Why is it only the Western world that is hold up to a standard? Let's say nobody freaks out when Iran Iran misbehaves. Nobody freaks out when Saudi Arabia kills 100 Christians. Nobody freaks out when Russia goes and conquers Ukraine again, or takes Crimea. They expect them to behave like that, but they don't expect the Western world to behave in any kind of bad way. Let's say if they make a mistake, they're gonna be held accountable by the whole world by it. But we are not looking at the Arab wars in Asia when they conquer mostly all of Asia, and they kill everybody. They took over Spain for centuries until they got kicked out by the Crusaders. Nobody claims any guilt, or they should be feeling guilty for all the people they killed and they enslaved.
Yeah.
Nobody's holding them up accountable because of these things. Why is that? Why is it only the Western world that is being held up to this own standards?
And why do you think that is?
I don't know. I just have no idea, because I know why is it permissible, and it's because of the guilt. I don't know why.
What guilt would Spain have, though?
The Crusaders, I guess, because they kicked the Muslims out of their own country, and maybe the Inquisition, but that was against their own people. Maybe a few Muslims too, but I have no idea what guilt can Spain have, and that I guess colonialism. That's a big one, actually.
Well, that would be a big one.
That's a big one. Europe, it seems to be open, and the Western world seems to be open for everybody. But it doesn't work the other way around. As long as Europe sets food, or the United States sets food in another country, it's called interventionism, or it's called colonialism, imperialism, and whatever. Mm-hmm. But the other way around, it's just nice immigration. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's interesting. It seems to me, I think there's a lot of, and my take on it is that there's a lot of factors that push things in that direction. A lot of them. I think that human affairs are incredibly dynamic, and so I often say it's like pushing water uphill. It's just you know, you can't say just shove and it'll go. It's tremendous amount of effort required to get anything to move in that direction. And so I think that what's moving the world in these directions, like what you're talking about there, are incredibly complicated and complex, psychological, political, historical forces that are pressuring that in that way. And economics is a huge thing. I don't mean finances, but economic considerations huge in moving things in that direction. I think that one of the components of that is that Western values have been articulated very clearly and very effectively. And so we have articulated, the Western values of Christianity have articulated a view of compassion, love, of the strong helping the poor, the strong helping the weak, the rich helping the poor. These are Christian values. Founded in the teachings of Jesus Christ. They're legitimate values. These are not to be denigrated. They are the true Christian values, and they transform the world on the back of these. And now we're held to the standard of those values, which I think is fair, right?
That's true.
Whereas we look at other cultures, Arab culture, they don't have this system of values. They don't have this Christian backbone of values in their culture. They're not held to them. And we can look at that and say, well, we think they should be held to our value system, and they should, and they will be. I believe that the judgment of God is going to be on that value system, amongst other things. I mean, it goes beyond the ones I mentioned.
Right.
I don't believe it's all about social issues, but I believe they're part of it, right? And they're going to be judged by those, but they're not. But because they haven't espoused them, they didn't articulate them, they didn't bring them into the world. They're not being held accountable to them.
Yeah.
And so I think Jesus predicted this in a way we could say when he said that to whom much is given, much is required, that, you know, we're basically going to be held accountable to them and we have to live up to them.
Yeah.
So in a way, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that the U.S. is held to a higher standard than Saudi Arabia is. I think that we're acknowledging that their culture is subpar.
And they are too, by holding the states in a higher.
They are agreeing. They're
they're agreeing.
saying we are less accountable than you. We are less moral than you. We are less humane than you. And I think that we should say, yeah, you're absolutely right. That is right, and we hold ourselves to that higher standard.
That's true, and I think that's one of the I want to go back to Mexico a little bit, probably. I think that's one of the roots that I forgot to mention of the way of thinking about accountability, about all these bribes. Why is it so rampant? It's not only because it's socially embedded in them. I think it had to do a lot with the religion that we were, I'm going to say imposed on, we were taught by the conquerors, which was Catholicism.
The conquistadors as well.
Yeah, the conquistadors. Because that system of accountability just doesn't work. Because you do stuff, then you ask for forgiveness. And the Christian worldview, let's say, you are accountable to God. You police yourself. You don't have to go ask for forgiveness to anybody else or do something physically, some ritual that's gonna purge you from your sins. But it makes sure we have that, right? If you feel really, really bad about something you did, you should go ask for forgiveness. You give some alms. You say the words, and then you're good to go, and that solves your conscience. With Christianity is more of the accountability. If you do something, you're accountable to God, even if nobody knows. Even if nobody knows, it's between you and the Lord. So I think that policing yourself works pretty good in the social fabric.
I think Christianity has true. I mean, in a way, Mexico I consider to be a Christian nation in that it is part of Christendom. So they're not a Islamic nation, right? They believe in they're Catholics, which I put into Christendom. Now I understand the distinction that you're making. I make it also that they're not Christians in the sense of believing the Bible, being saved individually, understanding, having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Right. They're not Christians in that sense, yes. Right? And I agree a lot of your take on that, or your how you're looking at that, and I think that Christianity emphasizes the personal response to sin.
Yeah.
Right. Meaning that it's not about did I say I was sorry. That doesn't matter to Christians.
Yeah.
That's not what we're not worried about if someone says they're sorry. What we're concerned about as Christians is, am I really sorry? Am I really repentant?
Right.
It isn't whether I said it or not. It isn't whether anyone thinks I am or not. That's not what matters to me. It is what is my view of what I did myself. That's what matters to Christians. And because we come at it from a theological standpoint, that sin is something that is dealt with at its root in our heart,
right,
not at its consequences in our hands, right? So it's not something you can fix with your hands. It's something you have to look at and say, it isn't the actual thing I did that's the most egregious. It's where that came from that's the problem, which comes from a strong puritanical foundation where it's like, it's not what you did. That's really the problem. I mean, that's a problem, but it's not the real problem. It's where it came from. Then that's what you have to deal with. And that's why the whole repentance and personal relationship with Christ and giving your life to Christ, you're not saying forgive my sins. You're saying take over my life, change the source of where these things are coming from.
Right.
I need a transformation in my mind, be renewed in the spirit of my mind. It's that perspective of Christians. And so when we do that, then where it's no longer about, I can do something wrong and then just say I'm sorry, and then it gets forgiven, and then I rinse and repeat the cycle.
Yeah.
Christianity doesn't work that way at all. It's about trying to break the cycle. And once you have that mindset change, and you see that in Christians in Mexico, most Christians in Mexico that I know are very honest, very upright. They are the seed of integrity in Mexico, that maybe something politically could one day evolve if you get enough of these Christians who do not want corruption. I think the reason why there's so much corruption in Mexico from a social level or from a social perspective is because everybody wants it to be that way. It's a whole lot easier. Even if you got rid of the red tape, There's in Mexico, it's impossible to do anything illegally.
Oh, yeah.
It's just impossible.
It's just
Yeah. So you just do it illegally, and then it's real easy, right? They actually have a shadow system in Mexico set up to do things illegally. Like I went in, when I lived in Querétaro a long time ago, I went in to get a driver's license. As an American, back then, Americans could get a driver's license. Well, anybody could get a driver's license.
that's still going on.
So I went in and I said, I'm here to get a driver's license. And they said, well, there's the legal way. And they pointed up to the wall and had all the requirements and what it cost. And then there's the other way. And I said, what's the other way? They said, well, let's say the legal way was 100 pesos. And I said, well, that's 300 pesos. And I said, and what else? No, that's it. Oh, okay. So I gave him 300 pesos, took my picture, gave me a driver's license.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, hey, meet me in the alley. And
Right.
It's like you walk in, it's like, there's this way and then there's this way.
Yeah.
And like, all right. And the other way is like, oh, forget it. It'd take me a week or more to get it. You had to do classes and all this stuff. Or you just give them 300 pesos and you have a driver's license. Yeah. And it's like, great. That's wonderful. And Mexico works that way. There's the legal way, which is almost impossible to do.
Man.
Because the law, many times the rules they have, you can't do everything.
Yeah.
They contradict each other.
Yeah.
So you can't actually do it legally. It's impossible to do it legally sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know that for a fact. I've tried to do things legally there, and you'll get to the point where it is legally impossible to do it legally. And so it's like, fine, here, let's do it the other way. Let's do it the easy way. And that's how the country operates. And people like that. I know Mexicans who become infuriated when the policeman won't take a bribe.
Really?
Yes, and he insists on giving them a ticket. And they're mad. They're like mad at the policeman for being honest.
I can see how that will be
It's just
strikingly
like,
odd. Like,
can't we just resolve this?
just,
Just charge me the fine now.
yeah, they will be like, what? You want more money or what?
And they're like, nope. I've actually had I've very few, but I've had a few instances where I've dealt with cops who are completely honest
Wow.
and will say. I remember one time. I won't say who. I won't say his name, but my dad. But I won't say his name.
Okay. Let's keep it like that.
Yeah, I'll keep it anonymous. My father. He got pulled over by a federal on one of the highways, and the guy says, "Hey, you were speeding and whatever," and he was. I mean, everyone speeds. The speed limits are ridiculous. Yeah. So he was speeding. So he's like, "Okay, yeah," and he said, "I'm gonna have to write you a ticket." And so and my dad says, "Well, can I just pay it now?" And he says, "No, you can't." He says, "Well, can you pay it for me?"
Oh, all right. That'll work.
and the policeman, he gets out his little calendar and he looks at it and he goes, "No, I'm off for the rest of the week, so you're gonna have to pay it yourself."
Wow.
And he gave him the ticket.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. We're like, well.
Wow.
But I know I have some Mexican friends who get upset if that happens to them because they're like, oh, then they got to go stand in line and do all that, and they're like, wait, why can't
and
we
they'll
just
take your plates.
Yeah,
sometime.
They take your
Really?
license plates. You got to go get them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing that'll get you, because otherwise they won't pay it.
Oh no, who's gonna pay it?
Who's gonna pay it? There's no system to track you down.
No.
Like,
Exactly. There's no system.
so they take something.
They have
take
to.
your plates,
They have to. Yeah, that's what they
or
got to
your
do.
license.
Well, you were saying about street preaching. Do you still do that here in the States?
We haven't done it in a while because of all this crazy.
I was wondering about
virus.
that. If you guys are preaching with the pandemic, I would imagine that wouldn't go over well.
No, mainly because there was nobody on the streets.
Yeah,
The people we were preaching to, it was at bus stops. So
that's where you were
people,
preaching.
Working people, yeah. So they get off work, and we go to a bus stop and just preach at the bus stop. And
Before the pandemic, how did that work out for you guys?
Before the pandemic, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think people would listen, not many, but I hardly got talks. We will get some scorners and stuff, but overall, I don't think we're getting much attention, like real attention. I mean, they will look at you because you're screaming on the street.
And how many people would normally be at a bus stop?
We got fairly a good crowd, 15, 20 people at times, if you strike at the right hour. if you are a little late, then yeah, everybody's gone, and you preach to 2 people or 3 people, whatever. But right around 4:40, 5. There's a lot of people there. 5, yeah, like 20 people.
Have you ever had anybody come to the church from that?
Not recently that I know, but I know Bill has told me that many people have come in the past. I'm not seeing much fruit. He might grill me for that. I don't think so, but I think it's worth it. So
Why is it worth it?
I think it's worth to get the message, because one of the things that we figured out strategically is that all these buses that we're preaching to are going somewhere else, not on our side of town. So even if they wanted to go, it'll be like on the complete opposite side of town. Let's say. I get a lot of people. I get a lot of Spanish people, speaking people, to talk to them, and they'll take the track, and I'll ask them and say, "Thank you for preaching. Thank you for how you save it." They will say, "Yeah, maybe, I don't know." But as long as people coming to the church, I don't see many, or any in the past years, which is sad. I think it's way harder to get people from the street here than it's in Mexico.
What is your view on street preaching in general, just in today? Let me kind of set that up a little bit, or
that's very right.
Contextualize that a little bit. So there's a couple of different views of street preaching in the people that I know, and there may probably be more from people beyond that. But just within people that are mutual friends or acquaintances of you and I, there's a couple different views of that. One is that street preaching's a method. It's a way of getting the gospel out. There are many ways to do it. They all fall under the same umbrella of evangelism. Street preaching is not any better. It's not any more biblical or any more effective, or necessarily, except maybe for the time. At some time, some place, somewhere, it might be more effective. In other cases, it may be something else. And those people are willing to use whichever method. It doesn't matter whether it's passing out tracts, knocking on doors, television, radio, friendship event. To them, all of it is preaching. All of it is evangelism. It's that way. Then you have, I guess, the opposite extreme, and then you'd have a spectrum between the people that fall in there. But then the other end of that would be that street preaching is a privileged method. It is a particular or a special method that has certain pleases God more than other methods, or is more biblical than other methods. And so they see preaching as being something special, and it shouldn't be put in the same group of other forms of evangelism. And so that's how they see it. How do you see it?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I can see both sides of the spectrum. I think I value both. Mm-hmm. I value this. For example, we're talking about the gospel, and a lot of people that I'm probably never going to meet in my life, maybe will see it, and maybe they will get something out of it. That is an amazing tool. That is an amazing tool to get the gospel out. Streaming, YouTube, all these media platforms, we should use him. I think we should use him as an instrument as much as possible. Street preaching, it might not be as effective as this. You might not reach as many people. But I think it's very, very important to do it. There is something.
What is good about it?
I think there is
what's the value of it?
Yeah, I think the value of it. I do think, like you mentioned that these people say that there is a value in it. I think so too. I think there is something that putting you out there and taking that, not that it is about you, but taking that, I am a Christian. I am willing to stand here and speak about Christ openly without shame. I think there is a value in there. I am here and putting myself in danger, whatever it is, and I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I think there is a value there on people seeing that, on people seeing preachers on the street taking the shame.
But don't you think that that's the same thing that say door knockers are doing? Do you think there's a distinction there between the let's say the courage or the or the exposure that you're exposing yourself to vituperio, to shame. Door knocking, you think it's lesser?
I don't think it's lesser. I actually prefer preaching than door knocking. Door knocking I just don't like it.
Right.
I just
but
don't like
but
it.
as far as the
But
as
yeah.
far as I
long as
understand what
it's
you're saying about
yeah.
preaching. You look at it and you say, well, when you see someone preaching, they're exposing themselves to danger. They are being shamed. They're not being governed by shame. It takes that, and I agree that that's true. But isn't it true about basically anything where you present the gospel? I mean, is there any door knocking? Say you do it on a podcast. Is that somehow less in those ways?
I don't know if it's less. It might be a little bit less, let's say, on a podcast. Let's say.
Or what about going up and knocking on someone's door?
Let me say this first.
Okay.
Let me see. All I do is videos on the internet, and they're very helpful. They're amazingly helpful. But you're not taking any shame that I can, let's say, quantify in a person to person.
I've tried to do videos. It's pretty shameful.
Well,
I'm pretty embarrassed most of the time. Tell them how my video is, my first video.
No, I understand what you say. Myself, last night I couldn't sleep. Yeah.
So this is worse than preaching.
In a way, because I love my sleep. And I just couldn't sleep. I was dreaming that I was late, and then you started without me, and it's like, and I had two dreams. I told Lena, and she was laughing at me so hard.
That's funny.
And my other dream was that I was here for an hour, and then you told me, okay, thank you for coming, and then I left, and then I checked my phone, and you were still going. And I was like,
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Write that one down. We got to do that. That sounds like it'd be a good show.
yeah. So man, I was being tortured at night last night.
See,
But yeah.
when I do these real easy for me. Like I can sit here and talk to you all day, and pretty much anyone I have on. That people say, I don't know what we're going to talk about. It's like, what are you talking about? We can talk all the time. I just want to have a conversation. I can talk all day on all kinds of stuff. And it's easy. But when I try to do like videos I've tried to do, and like I'm like trying to do like, it's one reason I haven't done, like I want to do a series of gospel videos where I explain the gospel and put them out. And I haven't done it because I'm just so bad on camera. I'm just like,
You know what to do with your arms?
no, I'm like,
Yeah, I get it.
so bad. It's like I don't want to do it, and it's just like a terrible presentation. So
Right.
I'm trying to get to be where I can like not be so awkward,
Yeah.
where I can do that. I mean, I have a whole bunch of ideas for them, but sorry. Anyway,
Absolutely. Yeah, but I think being on a podcast, I think you can get acquainted to this. I don't know. I don't see how can you get. I'm sure there is people who have gotten acquainted to preaching, let's say, but I cannot. I freak out every time I'm about to start. I can see how can you get used to the camera, get that. And I'm not saying that that's what the value is or where the value lies, but there is something to me, and the putting yourself in the spot, and telling people about the gospel and telling them, look at me, I am not crazy. I can have a rational conversation with you after I preach, and you in a logical process of thought of what I'm saying. So you believe that this is not just the craziness that it looks like it is. The Lord says something about that, right? That it pleases that it is by the foolishness of the preaching. But I think what you're trying to extrapolate here is what is preaching. And I think,
like for instance, let's look at that. That's a really good text. So he says God chose the foolishness of preaching, but in context, the foolishness of preaching is not referring to whether you're screaming on the street or not. I'm not saying that's not what preaching is. That's not my argument. My point is, when he talks about the foolishness of preaching, he's not talking about that it's foolish that someone's shouting or that it's foolish that you're standing in front of people. He's talking about a much more fundamental concept of what's foolish about the preaching, and it is, has to do with the resurrection and has to do with these things. I think that we diminish the gospel if we think that what's foolish about preaching that is laudable is shouting.
It's to make a fool of yourself. Yeah, it's not what.
That's not what he's saying. Now, that is not. I want to be clear because I almost guarantee that the people watching this show are thinking that I'm arguing against preaching, which is funny to me because I've been preaching almost my entire life. I think it's very funny that people think I'm against preaching, but people think I'm against anything that I question.
Yeah, that's right. And,
because I make like on this. I'm not actually going to tell you right now what I think, but when I make the argument for, let's say, the side that thinks that preaching is gospel, is just evangelism, I'm going to make the best argument I can for that. And when I make the argument for those that think that preaching is a specific God-ordained method of standing on the street or in a public space and crying aloud the gospel, I'll make the best argument I can for that. People shouldn't extrapolate from that I'm actually on one side or the other.
Okay. Yeah.
But my point is, I talk to people who do door knocking, and I've done door knocking. And if what we're saying is commendable or laudable about preaching or makes it special is that it's bold. Well, I think door knocking is bold.
Door knocking is bold.
I think it's very
Definitely.
bold. And so I don't see a distinction there. I've done both. I've done both quite a bit. And I don't see any distinction between those. If it's because you feel foolish doing it and that makes it better, I've done both and I don't find any distinction. I would prefer to preach, actually. If I had to choose
That's my standard.
from my how it makes me feel personally, I would much rather preach.
Yeah.
Going up and knocking on someone's door is one of the hardest things I can do. It's very difficult for me.
Even passing out tracks is really hard for me.
See, that's not hard for me. It's just so boring.
Yeah.
I just want to fall asleep. It's just like, I just hate doing it. I
get
hate it.
Yeah.
One reason is I hate people giving me stuff. So I hate doing it to them. It's like I'm handing them and I hate doing it.
That's true.
That's why I went to making tracks that were much smaller, easier to put in your pocket and stuff. Now we just do a business card. Nolan made some I really like.
Yeah, I made it's actually just a black card. It says Freeborn Church.
Okay.
And then on the back, it has just a QR code that takes you to our website.
Okay.
And it has 4 little social media icons on the bottom of that.
Right.
So it has the little Facebook icon, the YouTube icon, and Instagram. I think it's our 4 social media platforms we use.
That's cool.
So they know where our name. They can take us to a website, and the website has our videos and has everything else. And then they can go to Facebook, type in Freeborn Church, and they'll find us.
Yeah. John made something like that for me. It's like a business card, and I just give it to people and it has my phone number, my email, a small gospel message, just business card. That's a good idea. But yeah,
So one of the problems I have with preaching in the U.S. today, and I haven't done street preaching in a while now. I did it the reason I started the church that I started on the South Side was because I was street preaching on the South Side. And I found the same problem you guys are having or you're having at the bus stops, that I would preach and invite people, but a lot of them did not have vehicles. And there's just no way they were going to go from the South Side to where I was meeting, which was
that's why
Oakville.
they're taking the bus. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't have a way to get there. And if they have a car, they're not going to drive it 45 minutes. And I know because I would invite them, and when they found out where it was, they'd be like, and I'd end up sending them to one of the Baptist churches in that area is what I would end up doing and send them there.
Me too, because I preach in Spanish. Where am I going to send them? You know?
Exactly. Well, that was another problem, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I started the church on the South Side, was to have somewhere to invite people to come who I was street preaching to. That was the idea. Now, I never had a single person come to the meeting from the street preaching, which is very odd. I mean, I preached there for 10 years in those neighborhoods.
You're a bad preacher, though.
I am a bad preacher. There's that's a given. That's not even a debate.
Well, I agree with all that, but I will argue too that of the unknown, the unknown factor. How many tracks you passed out that maybe have landed on the heart of somebody, or your message really struck somebody? I don't know. And you could say this about anything, I guess, but how can why should I stop preaching at that bus stop? Let's say, or what should I do instead? Like, should I stop preaching to those people because they don't seem to react? Because I don't know if they are reacting, right? Or should I go to another bus stop? Because you're going to deprive somebody of the gospel. either way. So I think there is a value in putting you out there in a personal way, let's say, because I can pass out, I can share stuff on Facebook all day too. I can send emails, and maybe I should be doing that too. So I should be doing both, but I'm not sure why. I don't think you're arguing for this, but I don't think we should stop preaching though.
No, I'm not. I'm not
yeah.
arguing for it. I'm not trying to stop anyone from doing anything. I think that people ought to do the ministry that they see valuable, whatever that might be. I have no problem with that at all. I don't ever tell anyone, "Oh, you don't do that. That doesn't sound like a good idea." I think everybody ought to be doing the ministry they find valuable. I'm looking at it and analyzing it from just the perspective of what is the best use of my time. I've come to the conclusion, or I don't know if it's a conclusion because I could change, but I've come to the thought recently, within the last few years, that I need to find that preaching increasingly in the U.S. and even in Mexico is coming to a point where street preaching is not going to be very effective if we care about actually winning souls. Now, that could change too, right? Things could change. Have a huge solar flare and it wipes out all the electronics in the world.
That'll do it.
Then everyone's sitting out on their streets, and then, everything would change. But as it is right now, it doesn't seem to me to be the best way to win people.
Are we talking about effectiveness?
Effectiveness.
Okay.
If you actually want to win souls, I'm not finding it to be incredibly effective. I mean, I did it for 10 years on the South Side. And in the streets, street by street by street, we did basically the entire South Side, and we did most of it or a lot of it twice.
Right.
And never got a single person to come to church.
Right.
One of the men in my church, Albert Silva,
Okay.
he, with every interaction he had with people, especially as a police officer, but even in other ways, he would get their number because he had something. He had something that they would want. It's good to know a cop. Right? It's good to have the personal number of a policeman. That's a good thing to have.
Right.
And so he would offer them his number, but he would get their number. And then he, every week, would send out a text to all the numbers in his phone with a little message, come to church on Sunday. Every Saturday, he'd send that out. Every Saturday night, come to church on Sunday. There was no doubt in anyone's mind. He wasn't being tricky or, he witnessed to him when he got their number. They knew he was a Christian. They knew he was bold for Christ. And they got a text every Saturday from him saying, come to church.
That's awesome.
He had 50 people visit our church one Sunday.
Wow. That's awesome.
Now, that won't work for me probably. I'm not saying everyone can do that, right? He has a special gift.
Yeah.
He does. I understand.
Yeah.
My point is, there are effective ways of accomplishing something, and I'm not sure that preaching is as effective as it once was. I think it's increasingly becoming less effective. I think the fact that we are now preaching to people without cars means we are really limiting how many people we're going to reach. Most people have cars, and they're not standing at bus stops.
we went, we tried to get back into it. I think we were still at Southside.
We haven't done it at all from free.
No, we hadn't, right? No, we did door knocking then.
Did
We had
door
door
knocking.
hangers and all
Did
that.
door hangers, not
Yeah.
door knocking.
Yeah, we did door hangers.
Because that's getting very hard too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody
Door
opens.
knocking, nobody
opens
wants to
the door.
stand there and have a conversation with you.
we would went down. We were still at the South Side, and people were. You get there, and it's nighttime. You would think people are home from work, sitting down. We knock on doors. Nobody's home. No cars are in the driveway. There's nobody home because they're all out eating dinner.
Yeah.
They're not cooking at home anymore, I guess. And we went, I don't know, 4 Thursday nights.
Uh-huh.
Nobody. We preached, nobody. One person, I think, and all 4 nights came out.
Right.
Yeah. It's just we don't get the same reaction as when, I don't know, me and Cole and, my grandpa Trini would go out.
If I could find a place anywhere, whether it be here in the U.S. or in Mexico, anywhere I was, which was the way Mexico was when I was preaching in Mexico, where people would go down at night, sit in the park, and we're looking for something to listen to, and you preach, and I would get, in San Luis Potosí, I would gather 200 or 300 people every night.
Really?
To listen. Oh, yeah. It was huge group of people would stand around and listen to me preach every night. I preached every single night downtown, and every night I would get 200 to 300 people standing around, joined up and listen. But even if I could get 10 or 15, but people are there, just the average normal people, and I get talks, and some people come to church and some people get saved. That was the experience I had in Mexico. If I could find that, I'd be street preaching tomorrow, or preaching in the parks, or wherever that was at. I would do it tomorrow. I have no problem with street preaching whatsoever. I think in some ways it outweighs other methods. It's better than other methods. It's direct. It's the message is the key central point of it, right? There's nothing else there. It's just all you're saying, this is the message. You're just speaking. And speaking, in my opinion, is still the best way of communication. It's not the only way to communicate. And that's one problem I have with the extreme side of the spectrum, who believe that preaching is the only way to communicate the gospel, or the only legitimate way.
Is there such a side?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there is. I was on that side.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe I was the only one, and that's fine. If I'm the only one, then that's fine. But there is that side, because I was there, where it's like, if you are communicating the gospel any other way, you're not really communicating the gospel very well, or you're not communicating in a way that really pleases God in itself. And so, yeah, it's an extreme side. And like I said, I think there's a spectrum that falls between those. And so I think that's a mistake to look at it that way. But I do believe that any way of presenting the gospel verbally is the best way we have figured out so far.
Right. What kind of methods are you using, let's say, that you found effective?
None. The only thing we have found effective so far is personal contacts. So if we actually want people to come to church and be a part of the church and have that type, because if we start talking about what's unknown, well, then any method is good, because every method has the equal amount of unknown or uncertainty.
Right.
So if you say, well, we're not winning anybody through preaching, but who knows what could be happening? Well, I could say that about everything then.
Are you talking just about everyday people? Where are you finding these people
They could be,
to interact?
No, they're going to be coworkers. They're going to be family members. They're going to be friends. They're going to be people you have a more intimate interaction with. So it won't be something you bump into on the sidewalk. It'll be someone, maybe a mechanic or whatever, but, it'd be that type of interactions, talking to them about the gospel and inviting them to church.
Right.
And one of the amazing things to me about the U.S. is people are looking to go to church.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. Even unsaved people want to go to church.
Yeah, we have been examining a way of finding a spot that is closer to church, that has people, and we can go preach to. I think we should implement all the other devices of preaching, other methods too, like what you're doing here, podcast. Me and Steven were trying to start something. We haven't gotten our times together yet, and our ideas very well put together yet, but we want to do something again. And I want to continue preaching too.
Yeah.
But I want to find like a park that people go to
That's gonna be hard.
That's gonna be hard.
And and with what's going on, the pandemic,
that's
the
gonna
riots,
make it worse.
all of these things that are piling up.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna have the same chilling effect that we have seen that violence has had on Mexico on the preaching. So the incredible amount of violence in Mexico has completely shut off the country to preaching.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say completely. It's hyperbolic.
But pretty much,
But it has really shut it down. I mean, it has clamped it down to where people are not walking out in the street when they hear someone shouting out there like they used to. That's not a curiosity anymore for a lot of people. Someone screaming in the street is a sign that there might be something really bad happening now.
Yeah. Me and Bill were downtown a couple days ago, Wednesday, with the intention of preaching. There was going to be a gathering of protesters at the courthouse. So Lena set it up. She found out on the internet, and I jokingly say that she was trying to get rid of me by making me preach in the middle of these guys, and trying to get a new husband. So we went over there like at 5, and we went to our regular bus stop, and there was very few people. Yeah. And then by the time we were ready, everybody was gone. So we walked to the courthouse, and we saw the FBI, we saw the police, we saw helicopters, we saw the news helicopters. It was like, man, this is gonna be wild. 2 or 3 protesters. Now Lena said that so we left, but Lena was in another car. So
Do you think that you should preach in that type of environment?
I didn't think it was the right way to do it, because I thought that the effectiveness of the gospel was going to be just like, I'm not even listening. I'm just here for something else. So I didn't think it was a good idea, but I was gonna go along with it. I don't think Bill thought that it was a good idea either, but we were willing to give it a chance. But yeah, we knew that it was not a good idea, but we were willing to do it. I don't know if that's a good idea in itself.
I'm very torn on whether on that whole thing, just from my personal experience. So, one of the most effective nights I've had preaching was preaching in the procession of silence.
Yeah. In Toluca?
In Toluca.
Oh, yeah.
No, in Querétaro.
Okay.
We've done it in other places,
Those are
but
very big.
yeah, well, Querétaro ones is huge. And anyways, this particular one, we had a lot of people upset at us because we're shouting in the middle of a procession of silence, right? And so they're very upset. But that's where I met Adi's dad.
Really?
Yeah. He was happened to be there and saw this huge commotion, people very upset, and me in the middle of it arguing with everybody and
He had
whatever.
He had candles in his robe and burning
No,
incense.
he was an atheist.
Just kidding.
yeah. But yeah, he got very interested in the commotion and somebody being bold like that, like what you're saying, standing there. Of course, when he came by, I wasn't preaching anymore. I was talking with people.
Okay.
But that's why I have a hard time, saying, well, preaching's good because it's a boldness. Because I think anybody who expresses the gospel in a direct way, through any medium, is expressing tremendous boldness. I mean, look at. I wouldn't put this. I don't want to sound like I'm putting this in the category of preaching the gospel, but just as an illustration, look at the flag that Drew Brees has drawn from saying he won't kneel to the flag. Right. I'm not saying that's equivalent to the gospel.
Right, yeah.
I'm just saying you can say, well, when it's done on video, there is a tremendous character assassination possible. If you go on any type, if you get any type of a viral views on something where you express something like the gospel.
I want to talk about that, but yeah, it's huge. I understand
it can be
that.
very, very. I mean, you can lose your job. There's a lot of, and we're not at the point maybe where speaking the gospel on video is as detrimental as, say, stand to your character as standing out in the street and doing it. But I think we're getting there. I think we're getting to that point.
I think you have a point, because social media has become so wide, so it's everywhere. It's our world. It's more real than the real thing in a lot of senses.
Yeah.
You put yourself out there and you're exposing yourself. I understand what you're saying exactly. We see it all over. We see people polarizing right now on Facebook. My own coworkers, if you don't agree with what we say, you just don't get it. They don't put out an argument why you don't get it. They don't put an argument why they're right. They just say you don't get it. And you are shamed from the group. And you are. I never was in the group, but
I know what you're saying.
But I can see how that can be detrimental to your workplace. For example, let's say my workplace sees this video and all the things that I'm spewing. And will they take an action? Probably. Yeah.
They might.
Yeah, they probably will. I understand. And they have a policy about social media. That's why I'm reluctant to mention.
Yeah.
The work.
The actual name of the
the
company
actual
and
name.
stuff. Yeah.
Because everything that gives them a bad name, it can make them.
It loses
it's
them
grounds for termination.
Right, because it is affecting their business model.
Yeah.
It's affecting their profit
And I understand
margin.
that.
I absolutely do.
I understand that. Whatever. I don't speak for them.
But a lot of I think people will find that like actually like preaching in the street or door knocking will have the same effect. If if you go door knocking and they find out you're working for X airline, whatever, X Airlines, and that's who you work for, the Karens of today are going to call and report you. They
Totally.
are.
I just introduced Lena to that term. She's like, what's a Karen? Why are you
What's
calling
a
me
Karen?
Karen?
Why are you calling me a
Stop
Karen?
being a Karen. And I show all the memes, and now
Yeah,
she's...
no, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's
Have you
awesome.
seen that one interaction between the woman and the man with the dog? The woman has the dog.
Oh, yeah, the Central Park?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's one
yeah.
of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. It's so hilarious. They're both like reporting each other.
They're reporting each other.
And the poor dog is like being choked to death. And,
That's why...
oh, it's hilarious. I watched that over and over. It's so
Wow.
hilarious. I died laughing.
But how she fakes that? He's attacking me. He's threatening me, and he's faking this voice like he's really threatening her to kill her and something.
Yeah, it was a very interesting.
Oh, man.
Both of them were abhorrent people.
Both of them are.
I wouldn't want to know either one of
Yeah.
them.
or have you seen this video of a guy just asking people on the street, why aren't you wearing mask? Just go to people, why are you wearing mask? He's already recording them. And the people's like, oh, why do you care? Get out of my face. And oh, you don't care about people. And this is the kind of humans we are becoming now. We are policing each other.
Well, it all depends, and if this disease turns out to be everything that the very worst case scenarios prove, then those people are going to be viewed as heroes. I mean, if tens of millions of people start dying from it, then anyone who's policing is going to be viewed as a hero. If it turns out to be nothing, then they're going to be viewed as Karens. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's true. And
Did you see the one where it was? I think it was CNN, but I could be wrong. It could be some other station. But there's a reporter, a television reporter, and he's out there, and they're showing the video, and he's like, "Yeah, you look at this? He doesn't have a mask, and he doesn't. Look at no one. Look at that. They don't have masks, and look at that. People just walking around without masks. Look at this." And then a guy rides by in his bicycle, and he gets right in front of the camera, and he goes, "Either does the cameraman."
like your cameraman. Yeah, I saw that. And he's like, yeah, oh, well.
The cameraman doesn't.
Speechless.
Yeah, he put a mask on just for the bit. It's just theater.
It's what they call virtue signaling.
Yes, it's just they told him do a report on who's not wearing a mask. Find an angle. The angle is outrage because that's what sells, right? Let's do this. Have this outrage. I saw a report by Tim Pool. He said that when he was working for a news organization, he asked them why they were doing these stories that were outrageous, and they said that the best way to get their videos, their news reports to be viral is to get women angry about something. If women are angry, even if it's angry against them, then they're going to make those things go viral. Women are driving the viral cycles.
Not very hard to do, though. No.
No.
No,
No. They probably go viral every 30 days.
Yeah. Did you see the one with the reporters with the building burning behind them and saying this is a peaceful protest?
Yes. This is so dumb. It's something crazy. It's ridiculous.
And this is the I don't know if we have time, but you mentioned something that I've been thinking about for but for a long time, about sin in the eyes of the new regime and the new social,
the new religion.
the new religion, and that there is no way of redeeming yourself.
Yeah,
and you have to basically, I think Don posted something like that, mentioning that, and I've been thinking about that. There is no way you can get out of it. Once it's up, there is there forever.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, I think the reason for that, and this is kind of my point on when I've put that out there, the reason for that, and what they've discovered, these leftists, they've discovered that one is they can't get rid of sin.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a big thing of the secularists. Let's get rid of sin. We don't want to have sin anymore. We don't want to deal with that. So let's pretend that doesn't exist. Well, they found out you can get rid of it, and so they've redefined it. So they all have they have their sins, and they're equally as egregious or equally horrible as
Yeah.
as Christian sin,
Yeah.
right? Which is all the phobias. Phobia is now the new word for sin,
Right.
Homophobia, transphobia,
Yeah.
xenophobia. These are their sins. That's phobia is now the new sin, and it's just as horrible as Christian sin,
Right.
Right. But they also discovered that you can say we're going to have forgiveness,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work that
But
way.
you don't forget.
Well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
When we get down to it, you realize, wait a minute, this is a real thing that that's something we have to deal with it somehow, and just simply who's going to absolve it? We don't have a God, so God's gone. So there's no supreme authority. Who gets to say this is forgiven?
Yeah.
Who makes that claim? Who makes this? Who makes this declaration?
Yeah.
This is for. There's no one to do it, and there's nothing to atone for it. So it's like, well, yeah, we could forgive you, but how are you going to atone for yourself?
Right.
Well, groveling is nice. We like that, but it's not good enough. Now you got these people going around and getting white people to get down on their knees and ask for forgiveness for being white.
Yeah.
And they're putting videos out,
Yeah.
and it's not enough. It's never enough, which
I-
was the point of Don's post.
Have you seen there's a group of black Jews. They said they're Jews, and they were, I think, in New York asking white people to kiss their boots, and they were doing.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
another one where he's going around saying, "I'm with this organization. I won't say the name, and they want us to try to get white people to acknowledge
yeah.
their and they got a whole 45-minute video of people getting down on their
Kneeling.
knees, kneeling, and apologizing for this. And I think a lot of this, I'm not saying that the individual is consciously thinking this, but I think all of this movement is because they're realizing a truth. And the truth is sin doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
Even fake sin that they're pushing, even that kind of sin cannot just disappear. This is what Christians need to realize. And I think most Christians, we do realize this, but we need to reconnect with this idea
Yeah.
that sin, and now I'm talking about real sin. Sin is not something that can just be wished away.
Right.
Something has to happen to deal with it, and it's going to be the most costly thing that you could possibly imagine will be required to deal with sin. If you look at it, if you look at it from a physics illustration, the result of Einstein's theory of relativity is one of them is that things cannot travel the speed of light, and one of the reasons or one of the proofs of this is that to reach that speed will require infinite energy, which creates infinite mass. So it's like you can't get there. The faster you go, the more energy is required, the more mass is required. With infinite mass, you can't
Right,
move
you're
it.
gonna move.
And so it just becomes this cycle. And what it is that to achieve something like that is beyond the imagination of possibility. It's why they're trying to find some other way to achieve fast movement to get to interstellar, right? But my point here is, when you look at it now from the Christian perspective of sin, getting rid of sin requires infinite power, infinite energy, infinite expense. It's not something that can be done simply or easily. And the more you try to move it, the more you try to deal with it,
Yeah.
the more energy and efforts required to it reaches infinite levels. It's why we can't handle. It's why no religion has an answer for sin.
Yeah.
They can establish it. They can make sin.
Yeah.
Right? That's easy. The leftists have shown that. And they've invented a whole list, a whole category of sins. Now they have all these sins, and these sins have replaced the other. So now homosexuality is good, and being against homosexuality is the new sin. That was
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say, for sake of argument, that homophobia is an actual sin. How do you deal with it? How do you fix it? You got somebody who was homophobic, and now they say they don't want to be that way. What's the fix? So
Yeah.
they're rehabilitated, and now they're viewed as being virtuous and not always tainted by that. You would think that anybody who renounced biblical morality and embraced homosexuality would be embraced by the community, but they're not.
No.
They're always tainted
Yeah,
forever.
forever.
They're
It never goes
tainted.
away.
Never goes away.
It never goes away. It reminds me of
no matter how many times they apologize, doesn't
that's
matter.
true. There was a story in Britain, I think, a couple years ago. There was this guy who said on Twitter, it might have been 2011, I think that this happened. 2011, this guy said about his nephew wearing a dress. This is not what a guy should wear, and he got ostracized, because he was a public figure. He ended up apologizing by dressing up, and I don't know if in drag, but he had a dress, and he took pictures. He went on I think he was on Squire magazine, and apologizing. I'm not a homophobic. Look at me, And the other thing is that if you don't line up with the ideology, you can even be stripped of your title of whatever you are. If you're a homosexual, let's say. Douglas Moore mentions this too. He says Peter Thiel, he didn't align with all the leftist ideas, so I think he endorsed some Republican politician, and he said he might sleep with men, but he's no longer homosexual. What are you talking about? Joe Biden saying you're not black if you don't vote for me, or what is going on? And this is not going away, even after they atone. It's always there, and this is the way they're looking at history. This is the common mistake that they judge in history outside the historic context. They're judging a slave owning according to the morals of today. They look on Plato as being stupid for believing that the essence was something else, something different that we come to believe that it is. We think we are more enlightened, that everybody that came before us, forgetting that we are building on top of that.
Right.
Forgetting that we are what we are because of them. And at the time, that seemed to be the progressive thinking. They were the progressive thinking, not you. But they're thinking they are. They're coming with the new black thread or something. You're not inventing anything new.
Yeah.
You're destroying.
Yeah, a lot of it is. Yeah. It's certainly a dilemma for the leftists. They don't have a way of, and I don't think that they're going to find a way, because you actually have to create an atonement. If you're going to deal with sin, and this is what Christianity has taught us, that is so right, that if you are actually going to effectively deal with sin, it is going to require an infinitely large sacrifice to do it. Yeah. And they don't have any way to do that.
No,
they don't have a Messiah. They don't have a Savior. They don't have anyone who can give their life in an infinitely valuable way.
Yeah,
I mean, one of them dies for their followers. It won't mean anything.
It means nothing.
It's the same thing as Moses dying or anyone else.
Yeah.
It didn't mean. It took God Himself manifest in the flesh.
Yep.
To atone for sin in a way that the human conscience would accept. This wasn't a doctrinal. So the sacrifice of Christ isn't acceptable because doctrinally it's acceptable. This is what Hebrews points out. Hebrews points out that the priests have sacrificed daily. They take a shot at it every day. Every day they take a shot at it and fail.
And never can.
And he says, how do we know they fail? It's not a doctrinal failure. It isn't that in the law it's written that it would fail. It is a failure in the conscience. Everybody who's there, you're there. They do the sacrifice. You are propitiated by it. You brought it's your sacrifice. So its effects fall on you. You know that. And yet in your conscience it says you're still a sinner.
Yeah.
And the priest says the sacrifice has been done and it is effective. And your conscience says you're still a sinner. Same way with Catholicism. You go there, you confess your sins to the priest in the confessional. He absolves you. He gives you a penance to pay. You pay it. You walk out thinking it's done. And your conscience says, no, you're still a sinner.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not a doctrinal problem. It is a fundamental reality problem. And when Jesus Christ dies on the cross and you believe that sacrifice, the conscience says it's done.
Yeah.
Now it's done.
And the other thing that I see is that all the offenses I tied up to God. They're all every offense is an offense to Him. And here, who you going to offend? You might offend a group of people, but who's going to atone for it? Who's the one who's going to forgive you?
That's right. Who's that absolute
Who's
authority?
They don't have an absolute.
Who can pronounce this and say, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to, and that's right. They do not have a central absolute figure.
Yeah,
They resist that. That's the that they
some
oppose
of them
that.
might forgive him, but there's going to be a large some of them that is going to be no.
That's
It's going to
right.
be there forever. And I'm still offended. It doesn't matter what I'm still offended. And until that last one person that's offended forgives you, you're not forgiven.
That's right.
And
And,
that's
then,
not gonna happen.
and whereas Christianity, not only do you have a central authority who's God, who the Father who forgives, but Christians all accept that authority.
Yep.
And then the belief amongst Christians is, if God is forgiven,
Yeah.
then who are we to not forgive?
Yes. Yeah. I think it all ties up to that.
Yeah, yeah, and this leftist ideology, they do not have a way to get there that I can see. I think that they are ideologically incapable
I don't
of
think
achieving.
they can.
No, I don't think they can.
I don't think it's possible.
No.
It's like Sam Harris trying to materialize, in a manner of speaking,
Yeah.
morality out of thin air.
Yes.
How are you
Of
going to
course,
rationalize that?
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because the closest thing they have to a God is science.
That's true.
Yeah, which is, in their own words, random. Which is like, wow.
But they act as if it weren't.
Yeah,
If
well, they
if
talk about
wasn't.
it as if it had all this great ambition and
Yeah.
design, but at the end of the day, they believe it to be random and incredibly evil, incredibly not evil, but
selfish
incredibly
gene.
selfish, incredibly destructive, incredibly dangerous. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time.
Well, didn't
Yeah.
you have a story from? about
Oh,
me?
tell us the Nolan story. Nolan's been dying to hear
I've
his
been
story.
asleep until this.
I think
very
it's more
moment.
shameful of me than it's on you. But when I first, Lena, she invited me first before coming to the meeting. She invited me to a preaching. So I went down to the preaching. I think you remember this.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And he was like 2 years old or something like that.
I was older. I was about 7.
Looked like 2 years old, and I was there with Lena. And he came running to Lena, and first thing he says, "Why are you with him? He's ugly."
Oh,
But-
from the mouth of babes came the truth.
Well, it all depends if either he was a 2-year-old or a 7-year-old. Is he a babe or not? But he said it in English, right? He said it in English. And Lena told him he understands English. He looked at me with a face. Oh, he took off running. And never came back. It's like,
See, a lot of
oh.
that. I think I remember what I said. I said he's ugly and he has long hair like a girl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
had
remember the
long
last part, but yeah,
curly
I
hair.
had curls, but yeah.
And I said
yeah.
he has hair like a girl, and I blame a lot of that on John. Because growing up in Toluca, I'm sorry, John, I just have to say it.
Come on,
It's
John.
all
Called out
John's
3
fault.
times.
John is getting called
He's
out.
getting it.
He used to make fun of me because if I had long hair, that's how my mom would get. He would get John to get me to get a haircut because he would tell John, tell him he looks like a girl, so that I would get a haircut. And John would be like, "Girls have long hair, boy," And I was like, "All right, I'll get a haircut." Well, and then I had the mentality: girls have long hair,
Right.
Boys should have short hair. That's
Yeah.
why.
It's all right,
It's,
man.
it's John's fault.
It's okay. I know. From that moment, I knew how it was gonna be. So I was like, all right, I can take this. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you came in. We enjoyed it, and we'll get you back again, talk about some more stuff. I love talking about Mexico. I
That'd
miss
be awesome.
Mexico all the time.
All right.
So that's real good. Thanks for being with us. This is a Freeborn Podcast. If you want to interact with us, you can email us at podcast@freebornchurch.com. If you have any questions or doubts, especially if you have doubts or questions about the gospel, email us at podcast@freebornchurch.com, and we will get back with you. We want you to know Jesus Christ and know that there is forgiveness in him. There is no forgiveness anywhere else.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, go look for it. We're not afraid of comparison. You'll find there is no forgiveness anywhere else, but there's forgiveness in Jesus Christ. And if you don't know how to find it, if you don't know what it looks like or how to encounter it, talk to us. I've been forgiven. I know
Amen.
it because my conscience testifies of
Yep.
it, and you can be also. We will be here next Saturday. Who do we have next Saturday? I forgot. What's next Saturday?
What's his name? Austin.
No.
No.
I don't remember who it is. I should have looked that up. Interesting. I don't remember. We got somebody coming on next Saturday at 9 o'clock. And so wait for you here live. We had a little bit of trouble getting started this morning with the audio, but we try to get started at 9 a.m. with a new guest. We have a guest coming on next Saturday, so be with us. Thanks for being with us. Take care.